Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Incom Gaming, Cheltenham's premier friendly local game store. Check the link in the description. Welcome to the Hobby Hour episode 14 with myself, Stuart, and my good friend Dan. And today we're going to be talking lots and lots of Games Workshop related stuff again. There's loads of Games Workshop news. And then for a main topic, we're going to take not a hugely deep delve, but a little of an early look at the old world event comp and do we need it this early? So a bit of a fun discussion around that. Anyway, a short break and we'll be right back with you. Right, and here we are. Dan, how have you been?
Yeah, good. It's hard to keep track of the time, really, isn't it? Because I was thinking about the last time we recorded. I think what's happened since then, and we've been and done stuff since then, haven't we?
We have done stuff.
Thinking we've recorded since. So
yes, we haven't recorded because we taught lots of hobby in person, which we'll talk about later on. But
yeah,
I'm good. Busy, really busy at the moment. Busy with work and things as well. So it's just. I see all these posts of people like, well, it's the 110th day of January kind of thing. And I haven't felt that because I've had so much to do. When I see the days ticking by towards the end of the month, I'm painfully aware that I've got deadlines and things that I want to hit. So
exactly. Clearly people haven't enough to do this month because I haven't had time to count days.
No, I know. I always think, so when I was a kid, I might have said, forgive me if I've told this story before. When I was a kid, every kid will have that. What superpower would you have? Kind of thing. And mine now would be the ability to pause time. It wouldn't be, so I'd have to remind myself to probably do some good with that. But the first thing I'd do is just catch up on all the stuff that I need to catch up on. Pause time, do some work, and then go, right, done. What a great superpower that would be. Just, God, I've got to get this army ready for that event tomorrow. Pause time. Off you go. Ooh, I want another hour in bed before I start work. Pause time. In fact, I'll probably spend most of my life paused with everyone paused around you and just sit and read a book or something.
How that works out, and it ends up being a really terrible film. Click is a terrible film.
There's a film, is
really terrible. Click. It's Adam Sandler, and it mortally offends me because he ends up trying to fast forward through a marriage with Kate Beckinsale, which basically makes him a patent idiot. Because I would want to spend as much time as possible married to Kate Beckinsale if it was me. So yeah, it's a terrible film, and it does go to show that you shouldn't abuse the power to pause or fast forward time.
I'm aware of it now, but I'm probably only aware of it in terms of a movie poster. I don't know. It's one of those. I'm not even going to bother reading what that's about or watch it. But I will not go and watch it based on your recommendation. Right then. So we got a lot to get through. This could be another long one. Who knows? But we'll start off. There's quite a lot of news, I think, and a lot of it GW centric, and all seems to have landed in the last couple of days. Nothing huge, but let's start with something that's not GW centric. So Warlord Games have just released ABC Warriors. I think it was the official release weekend was the Saturday just gone, and we're recording on Tuesday the 30th of January. They sent me a copy early. I've had a quick look at it already. There's a video on the channel for people interested in it. It's very much a traditional man opens box and shows you what's in box kind of unboxing, but I'll got some painting plans for the contents of that, and I think they're planning on sending me a few more bits as well, so there will be some tutorials on the channel. It looks really cool. I think the way I'm going to look to paint them quickly, not go for sort of non-metallic metals on them. Try to find a way of doing true metallics, but with that you will still get that style in there as well. I think most people who watch my tutorials probably won't want a tutorial on how to paint non-metallics. So something based on the comments I have. Some people like the higher end things, but most people want solutions to get stuff on the table. And so many people will say, I really enjoyed that video. I stopped at the contrast stage. They don't carry on and do the next part. So that's what I'm probably going to plan on doing with them. But it looks fun, Dan. I will get them painted, and we'll have to. It'll be one of those things when we get together for a day's just gaming somewhere rather than Warhammer World or something. Might be a fun game to crack out.
I'm kind of feeling 2000 AD because one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in. Someone mentioned today that they've confirmed doing Rogue Trooper.
Movie. Yep. It was in the Plastic Crowd podcast group as well.
Bloody film first, or Mega City 1 as they're originally supposed to make as well, the series with Carl Urban, etc. As much as Rogue Trooper's cool and all that kind of Dread 2.
I would love a Dread 2, but it's really, really, I can't remember any of the cast now, but the cast was listed in the post I saw, and there's some names in there as well. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be decent. And the good thing about that is as well, because Warlord has this license with 2000 AD and Rebellion, which I'm hoping's all up to scratch and carrying on. Part of that deal is that they have to release something Judge Dredd every year, but then every other year they release something else. And I'm sure that Paul Sawyer, who's a big fan of 2000 AD, will be chatting with John Stallard and I imagine Andy Chambers and Gav Thorpe and the people are saying, right, well, can we do a game for this? They were asked questions about it actually at the last open day, and I think they kind of said, no, not really, because it's a skirm. The system, the whole point of the games they produced for 2000 AD is that it runs on the same system essentially, and that a Road Trooper would probably need to be more of a larger skirmish game.
Yeah, mass
it's more about systems, fighting, but not necessarily. There might be a theme that the film brings out. Who knows? But they might also be a little bit that, you know, they might not have known that at that point. I can't imagine they're told ahead of what films are going to be announced. In fact, pretty sure there's no way they'd have known that. So maybe that will change their minds a little bit. Maybe they'll adjust some mechanics. You've got that in Block War already with Judge Dredd, that allows you to have a few more miniatures on the table. So maybe looking at that kind of thing, they'll be able to do it. Who knows? But very, very cool. Maybe they could bring something out and just not even use that system, but use the world building and convert the bolt action core rules to run a larger scale game. Can you imagine then writing rules for? It sounds really good, doesn't it? Imagine if you're listening, guys, maybe do that. You want to do a larger scale battle game. Just you got your miniatures already for all the other lines, so people can still have judges and things. You imagine playing everything against it. So you bring out just your profiles for the ABC Warriors. It just could be really, really cool. But anyway, ABC Warriors looks cool. Obviously, I'm very, very caught up in Old World at the moment. That's taking a lot of bandwidth, but I will be doing some painting tutorials on those. Should rattle through them relatively quickly. So there will be a bit more coverage on the channel. They've also been teasing something which is Achtung Panzer, and at the moment it's just that as a tease. It's just black and white, but they had hinted, I think, at Open Day as well, that they're working on a tank-based only battle game or something. So they might be bringing out a set of rules for tank.
I find that entire sentence quite interesting. If there's one thing in the entire world that does not need attention drawing to or announcing, it is generally a tank.
Tank game. Well, it
ain't
well,
stealth, is it?
You have Battlefront do very, very well with their tank game. What's it called? World of Tanks, isn't it? It's all based off. Is it World of Tanks, the computer game? And they've got their own. What's their own version called? I ignore it because it just doesn't interest me. But they've got a version which is when you get two tanks versus in a pack, and it's someone's going to put in the comments, and I'm not going to search it now. But
you lost me at World of Tanks, I'm afraid.
It's kind of those kind of
games.
Yeah,
if it's advertised between stuff on YouTube, I'm not interested in it. The World of Tanks, World of Ships.
It's a miniatures game,
World of Dinosaurs, World of Donkeys, whatever.
It's like an X-wing, but for World War II tanks essentially, and it does very, very well. And people will buy those packs and paint them for Flames of War because it's the same miniatures essentially, but I think some are remolded to be simpler. It's not called World of Tanks, and no, it's not called World of Tanks because that's the name of the. So in the comments, guys, because I can't be bothered to pause the recording now where I Google it. But I wonder if it's tapping into that market, because it wouldn't probably surprise me if they don't sell that more than they sell Flames of War, because it's just that kind of thing. And then we have the Old World Legacy Armies came out. People complaining that they weren't out on launch day, and they took all of about 3 or 4 days afterwards. And the first FAQ, so that's all nice and timely. I think I've too much to say on that, Dan. I don't know if you looked at it, but it seemed pretty logical. Nope. It was obviously pre-written based on playtesting comments and things since it's gone to print. A few explanations and things. And I think they're going to be twice a year like they do for Middle-earth. So we've seen one in January. I'm guessing it's going to be September. So, and that works. For those of you who don't play Middle-earth but are interested in the Old World, it works really well for Middle-earth, doesn't it? 6 month period, people sending in their emails. But yeah, it might be more for Warhammer. I think you'll find that Warhammer players break the game a bit more than the Middle-earth players do. I think they will, Dan.
Possibly.
so much of the
I don't know.
game is
There's a
so
few people
similar
in
to
Middle Earth who like
before.
doing
It's
it as
not.
well.
Yeah, there are, but in terms of the volume, I think there'll be a high enough volume of people potentially playing the old world anyway. There's a lot more things, a lot more profiles, a lot more interactions. I got a feeling that it will get broken more. Essentially, it's still, remember, it's just the Warhammer 8 9th edition, really, isn't it? And a lot of those players will come back and there'll be a tournament scene and people will break it. That's what happens. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. We've had a couple of events announced as well. Warhammer World events. And I'm not going to go into this too much detail because I'm going to use the packs as a bit of a discussion point later on. But there's one in April, one in May, I think.
One's a midweek
The
one,
posters
which they're more
I'll pop
fond
them
of
up on the
these.
screen now with the actual dates on there because so you can see if you wanted to go to them. But one's a 1,500 pointer 2-day at weekends. And then one's at 12:50, and that's midweek. It's a Wednesday event, which is
Yeah,
I didn't
which
even know they did
proving
them
to
until this.
be because my mate Jay's on the events team, and I think they started doing that a year, 18 months ago, doing midweek single dayers, and they've actually proven to be quite popular. And
it doesn't surprise me at all. Actually, you've got a big 2-university student city that Nottingham is, and lots of people will still take a day off and travel. You got doesn't work for someone like me very easily midweek, but in my pre-family days would have been fine, especially if you're people that are under 30. You got people working. Not everyone works 9 to 5, especially when you're younger. You're more likely to work shifts and things, and days off in the week, especially if you work in retail or something like that. Days off in the week are actually easier to come by than often than they are at the weekends. So
I was discussing that at the weekend, actually. Yeah, they're almost wistful. Then I realised I actually quite like having Saturdays off, and I stopped, had a word with myself.
I wouldn't go back to the days of having a day off. It's nice when you go to town and it's quiet and stuff, but I don't go to town anymore. So no, I wouldn't swap my weekends for anyone anymore.
I actually feel quite guilty now if I've got a day off and I go into town. So I think, do people think I've not got a job?
That doesn't sound like guilt. That sounds like some kind of shame you've got
Survivor's
built in there. Guilt. But so yeah, there's a couple of official events announced. There's some already third-party events going up, and again, we'll talk about those a little bit later. They've announced Middle Earth doubles, which is falling the same day. Same day, 7 stones for the people in the know. If that's quite a big popular event run by Damien and Tom, and it's a real shame they're clashing because Damien goes to doubles every year as well.
Well, I was going to I would have gone to doubles again with Mr. Murphy, but he's already at stones with someone else. So another year it's first world problems, isn't it? The fact that so many events. Oh no, we've got too many events. They're clashing. Heaven forbid. It sucks if you want to go to more than one, but it does mean if you can't go to one, there are others available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good.
And then I suppose linked to that, Middle Earth strategy battle game is back. They were able to they announced that there's releases coming, starting with some made to orders and hinted at something later in the year as well. So for Middle Earth strategy battle fans, even though there were lots of hints that the game hadn't gone away, we're working on it, but we can't announce anything. Obviously stuff going on behind the scenes, but people got nervous, people got worried, especially.
I wonder if the more vocal, less mature about it are feeling a bit foolish now. I hope you are.
They won't be, will they? That's not the way.
No, of course they won't.
I can understand the fear. I mean, we're talking to. I know we've got a lot of viewers now that are old world viewers because they joined the channel this year, but they lost their game obviously when the end times happened. But Middle Earth lost their game before as well. After the sales for The Hobbit didn't really go anywhere and the license went dormant for a little while. So they went for a number of years with no game, not as long, and it wasn't quite as final, but they've also lost their game and they were nervous it was going to happen again, especially when they see Legions Imperialis and Old World coming back. They see that the manager of Middle Earth, Rob, is also the manager of Old World. People just jump to conclusions unless you're kind of wired in across all the different game systems and follow the news a little bit more like we do. I can imagine why people would think, oh, okay, what's going on? But we believed we believed them when they said it was nothing to worry about, or they dropped hints that we just had to wait a bit, and looks like we're getting stuff this year. And it says something bigger, so I think it said something. I can't even remember what the final line is, but it definitely alludes to a bigger release coming later in the year. So hopefully a book or
Lots
something.
of good stuff to come. I guess I'm less tolerant of the whole thing as than perhaps other people might be than you are, because it's not my first rodeo. I went through this with Heresy. I wasn't willing to go through it for Middle-earth, so I did drop off all of the groups. So I might actually go back onto it now that people can start behaving themselves. I've sit on the it explains, but it does not excuse. Some people probably need to go and have a word with themselves about how they reacted. It's not necessarily how they felt, but how they expressed how they felt was not appropriate.
I'm with you on that.
And that only led to a rather poisonous environment for everyone else to be mired in, unfortunately. I suppose we had discussed talking about it. So while we're talking Middle-earth, out of the frying pan. So
yeah.
Our podcast, I think it's time to.
You want to make the announcement here? Okay. All right.
I think it would be wise.
Okay. So a lot of you are here, or some of you are here because Dan and I recorded Out of the Frying Pan, so Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game Podcast, and that's how we started recording together. And as the game became a little bit dormant and we weren't playing it much, and that was me more than Dan to start with. I was looking at other things, and I started this channel purely so I could do some unboxings of Warlord Games Epic Battle stuff that I couldn't talk about on Middle-earth podcast because it was just Middle-earth. And then that's grown and developed to encompass my whole hobby. And now Dan's joining on the hobby hour for that as well. So this long preamble to it is that we're going to continue playing Middle-earth, and when they release new stuff, we'll cover it on the channel. But we're also want to continue talking about all the other games, and we feel that running Out of the Frying Pan and the hobby hour is a little bit superfluous, really. It doesn't really make sense to do it. So we're going to leave it on its pause. It's been on its pause, and we're going to kind of leave it there, and end it as an audio only podcast. But what we will do is we'll fully bring it into the hobby hour. So we will do Out of the Frying Pan specials. Well, we probably should call this a Old World special after time. But we will do Out of the Frying Pan specials with the Out of the Frying Pan logo will ping up as well as the Hobby Hour one. And it will be a show dedicated purely or almost entirely to Middle-earth, but it will be rolled in with the other content, really.
We've already been told we're getting a supplement later this year. That was part of the announcement that GW made. So the chances are the first time you really see one of these new Out of the Frying Pan specials will be at that point. Hopefully this year. We never know at the moment with the way the release schedule is kind of floating, but let's all hope so. It's positive times, but as Stu said, there's an awful lot of people who keep asking, which is nice. Absolutely, it's really lovely that people are still interested in what we're up to in the world of hobbits and dragons and dark lords. We'd still like to be involved in that, and we still are very much interested in it, but there's not enough going around to warrant an audio podcast as well as this.
Not when we're into other things. If it was our only system, like it is for some players, then you find content because you can find things to talk about, whether it's a narrative campaign, whether it's playing scenarios like we did in the past during lockdown. We made a lot of content out of very little content, so to speak. But when you're doing other things and other things to talk about, there was no point in recording. We've talked about that a little bit before. And I suppose the realistic point of view is you will do specials. But if there's other news out for other games, we'll still talk about that in this section of the show. It just might mean that the main topic will be a Middle-earth one, and we will keep that Out of the Frying Pan special name because it's still very fond to us, special place in our hearts, the Out of the Frying Pan label and logo. So we will keep it there for those specials. But it was all, what we're doing is what we did for that show, just with the video turned on and talking about other games. The actual format of this is very, very similar to what we did before, and we'll continue to do that. And when Middle-earth is back in the news, we will cover it, and we will cover it properly. So
and you'll
if
get
you're
pictures.
a fan of, you will. And if you're a fan of Out of the Frying Pan, then stick around for that. But so what will it actually mean in terms of, aside from watching this, we are going to close down the Facebook group purely because we've not sort of shared stuff into it. We don't need
No.
to, because most of this stuff goes through Miniature Realms and it just kind of spreads it out. There's the Discord and there's channels on there to talk about the hobby hour. So it's not needed. And then the Facebook page as well. And the other, because we're not posting on it, it's clearly attracting bots. Now, we're not having spam on there at the moment, but there are a lot of people that are liking the page that clearly are either stolen Facebook accounts or they are sock puppet Facebook accounts that are probably used for and they're not causing any trouble. All they're doing is liking the page, but we're getting 2 or 3 a day. They're clearly not fans of Middle Earth. And those accounts are used for other things, and it's to build legitimacy, isn't it? So that they can then share stuff in other groups, and you click on their profile and it looks like they've got groups and interests and things like that. So they're probably old Facebook accounts that have been stolen and been hacked and that kind of stuff. So it's probably run from computers in Russia or somewhere like that. And all we're doing by not posting in there is just helping facilitate that kind of stuff. And I know they'll go to other places, but so we're going to shut them down. I will leave the YouTube channel up. But the idea is at some point I will get round to uploading all of the episodes onto their audio only. I'll have one solid image. So that way, if we ever close down the hosting, even though it's free, if we ever, at some point, if we don't upload anything, I'm sure they will shut it down. There's a record of it. I've done it with the Geno 5.2, which is my old Heresy podcast. You can still find that on YouTube. It's, if you do go and search for it, it's not safe for work. It's not like this at all. But we'll do the same thing for Out of the Frying Pan. So people do want to go back and listen to any of that old content, and it's as relevant as it was the day we did it, because it's all the same book, all the current books, and most of it's evergreen anyway. So if you do want to listen to some old stuff, go and do it. And it's just nice. It's nice to have it there. And at the moment, YouTube is a pretty safe place to upload stuff and just leave accounts. They don't tend to take down accounts. So it's kind of almost like a free hard drive to upload stuff to. So at some point I will get around to doing it, but it takes more time than the thing. In fact, they used to, actually. Now that they do podcasts, might not need to. You used to have to upload it as a video, but now you can do podcasts on YouTube. Anyway, that's not something. Thinking while recording is not something to do. I will look into that, but at some point I'll put them all up there. But yeah, everything else is going to go. So there's your announcement. Yeah. It's dead.
But
yeah, we are sorry, but I think people, it's not like it's a shock. We recorded a podcast last month. It's been a year since we recorded one. So I don't think most people watching this are going to be particularly concerned, and that the people who have followed us over anyway. I'll just be thinking, well, makes very little difference, to be honest with you. Anyway, Dan, you talk about the next bit then, rather than me announcing all of the news. So we're on to a painting trophy. Off you go. You can talk about it.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, you caught you out without the notes on.
Quickly, yeah. Well, I've put my notes in what I've been doing for that particular painting trophy. But the Golden Demon. Yes. This obviously we appear, at least, and I think it's a fairly safe assumption that there will be no form of Golden Demon whatsoever in the UK this year, or indeed any kind of formalised UK GW event of scale, i.e. Fest. Well, we speculate. I think they might be licking their wounds somewhat from the mauling they got from feedback last year.
Yeah.
At which point I'd say that's probably a good idea, because from the sounds of things, they needed to.
They could have spent a lot of money and sold so few tickets. They could have, made some losses. So I don't know whether they made losses last year or not, but with people knowing what they're likely to receive, which is no stuff, could have been a problem.
So it will be at Spiel in Essen in Germany this year. And then obviously they are running the first leg in the States as well at Adepticon, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So that was already known about. That's the US one.
But there will be no UK.
There was a US one at the Adepticon last year as well. So
yeah, but there'll be no UK demon. Obviously there's been some furore over that, some speculation online, as these things often will do. A lot of people, including some people we know, have queried whether it would be possible to do it at Warhammer World, although obviously they tried that before, which again caused its own problems with essentially, proper, I hesitate to use the word proper competitors. Everyone's entitled to compete, but people who, you know, the top painters, the Slayer sword winners and stuff couldn't get tickets, and they've been painting for
because
9
they
months.
ticketed it.
Yeah, which is
would they need to ticket it? And maybe we don't want to take the conversation here right now.
Well, I mean, it's however many 300 odd is the limit for Warhammer World. So either you bank spectators or you do it by invite.
I suppose they know how many entries they normally get, and that's the bit I don't know. So maybe that's why they did it.
Exceeds the fire. I think that's the problem, particularly when you take into account multiple entries and even storage. I mean, if everyone enters 3 or 4 things, even if they've got maximum capacity at 300, you're going to be looking 1,200-1,500 entries.
You could, in terms of the space, in terms of the space of storage, I think that's fine, because the layout that they had the last time I went to a fest, where you could walk all the way around the glass cabinets, you could fit that easily in the center of the.
Well, you could, but that further restricts your standing space for capacity. So it's diminishing returns. So I get it. I think
could they have done heats there? I think that would have been a way of doing it. It's still not the same, but you could have rather than the people who couldn't get the 300 tickets. If you do 2 heats, so at least that's 600. Is that enough then? How many serious Golden Demon painters are there? It's a difficult one.
To account travelers now, because obviously all the Spanish and the French mob come over, and Italians, as well they could and should, but it's hard to judge. I think that's possibly also why they've made such a big deal out of Armies on Parade this year. I know it's not the same thing, and I think anyone would suggest it would be, rightfully told to behave himself, but it's something for the community to get involved in within the UK. Which is nice. And obviously there's the painting competition at Salute. I know it's not got the same pedigree, but I think there are other options. But yeah, it'll be
miniature painting open in Bristol as well, isn't it? Is it in Bristol?
Yes, the Cop Paint Boys are involved in that. The tickets, a bunch of people I know bought tickets. I think they went on sale over the weekend, actually. I've not. It doesn't work out for me.
So there are other good painting competitions around, especially at some of the other wargaming events as well. I think obviously Salute is one that has fantasy categories as well. I think
there's the top black ones, isn't there? The ones that Mr. Wardle goes to that I forget the name of.
Yeah, you got your crystal brush things, and then you've got your the one in.
Is that the Italian one that's really insanely good?
It's nearly there, and I'm not going to try.
No, because I think a Monsavino,
That's it. Or close enough to it.
Yeah. People will know. Those who don't know won't know, and those who do know will forgive us.
Yeah.
Which is, but that's. I think even that. I think that makes
it's for the kind of people who are placing and hoping to win at GW. I don't think.
I think it's where the GW winners go and score bronze. Actually, the level that they're painting at.
But it's that kind of style. It's not that kind of anyone go along and have a go. I think
they're quite inclusive, but I don't think you're getting anything other than a participation for that one.
No, I don't think so. So, first of all, I think it's really important to say that it's brilliant that they're doing a European one. It's very easy to sound like moaning Brits saying, "Well, why are they holding?" Let's be very clear here. I don't see it as they've moved Golden Demon to Spiel in essence. That's not what they're doing.
No.
They've probably thought, we need to do more than just a US one. We need something based in Europe. So they've done one there. That should happen every year anyway, or somewhere in mainland Europe. I think they should have that every year. And I think there should be one down in Australia or somewhere. It's somewhere in that part of the world as well. Yeah, I think there should be one as well.
They used to get the shield, didn't they? Because it was the Golden Demon Slayer shield.
Yep. And if they, maybe they move that around, maybe sometimes it's in Thailand or something, Bangkok or something, maybe but I think there should be one down there. And I think Australia is probably the safest, the smartest place, and I'm sure that they could do it. So I think there should be one in Spiel. I think it's brilliant that there's one there. I think it's really, apart from COVID, someone might be able to tell me this, and I haven't looked this up, is have they ever not had one in the UK before, apart from COVID? Because I've got a funny feeling they haven't. I've got a feeling that they've always had one since it started.
It's generally been at GD, hasn't it? And
the thing is,
and the reason
anymore. And the reason it's not happening is because of Games Day, Fest, whatever you want to call it. And every time they've had an issue with holding it, it's because they're not running their main event for whatever reason.
To be a cynic, it's because it doesn't generate any money. So unless there's an event that's generating GW money, it's not viable.
Yeah. I just I can't understand why they would have made the decision that they weren't doing Fest probably before Christmas. I imagine they probably knew.
I'd imagine they made it 2 days after the last one.
maybe. But the fact that I would have assumed that would have been a multi-year contract there as well. So they, if it was, maybe the second, third year would have been a you could withdraw at a cost kind of thing, and they paid that whatever fee, lost the deposit, whatever it happens to be, because they seen that was worthwhile to cancel it. At that point, I don't understand. Well, maybe that's a really arrogant thing to say. There would have been loads of talk about it as well, but it's a real shame that in the meantime they haven't been able to find a solution for it. So if there's one at Spiel, I'd love to know if there was a conversation about UK Games Expo.
Yeah,
and maybe that's something they can look at for the view. Yeah, but if this, it's a big expo, and I'm sure if Games Workshop were willing to pay for it, and I think it's important that they do pay. You can charge people for entrance if you want to, but I think it's important that they do run Golden Demon, if it means you do have a couple of pre-runner events held at Warhammer World, and then only the people who make that top cut get to enter at one at UK Games Expo. But that's the biggest UK independent Games Expo at the moment. I think GW do go there now. I think they do have a store or something. But
I think they were there, last year.
So, it might well be there's just no space for them to do it. But also, I'm hoping they're still looking at something like that, because if they're not going to run a fest, it's embarrassing that they don't run one in the country that the company comes from, and for the first time in a very, very long time. And that's the general thoughts of the painting community. And the other, well, aside from the painting community, the other really important thing with Golden Demon was it's important to the non-painters as well, not just to see it as a showcase, and that was part of it. It's one of the things I like to look at most when I went to a games day, even before I was entering. But it was almost something that people would have a go at, in the hope that they could just improve year on year, and maybe one day get lucky enough to get a pin.
It's aspirational.
Yeah, and I've got a pin, and I'd struggle to get one now, but I haven't
got a pin.
So it's more than just the top end, and I've heard a lot of conversations focused around it, and I love them, but a lot of conversations focused around those top end painters that we all know. I think it's more than that. I think that they've let down that wider community by not holding something that's flagship. I mean, it used to be in the magazine, you'd have put-outs. This is a big thing. And I think this is going to be a terrible analogy to anyone who doesn't understand football. And I'm not a huge football fan either, but it's like the FA Cup. So the FA Cup in the UK is a cup competition rather than the Premier League. And it encompasses all 70-odd football teams and non-league football teams as well. So from all the divisions, we've got a very unique system for football in the UK. And you've got your Premier League, first, second, third divisions. Bear with me, Dan. There's a point to this. And then you've got non-leagues as well. And all of them get to enter the FA Cup. And the early rounds, these small teams are part-timers. Some of them are completely amateur and do their jobs in the week. And there's a chance they got on a good run, they can make their way to the later rounds. They don't get to the final, of course, because they always get beaten by someone big, but everyone gets to go, and it's this big celebration. And the Golden Demon's a bit like that you could just turn up. Anyone can enter on the day. You don't have to. You maybe got a little bit stricter towards the end. Maybe you had to print off your form before the day, but anyone could turn up with their miniature and enter. It's not this kind of really restricted thing where puts people off, where they feel like, well, I've not got any chance of winning, so there's no point in me taking up a space. And then there was that, when they did try and do it at Warhammer World, the tickets went to people that maybe weren't as good as Richard Gray, or maybe as good, and those meant those top end couldn't get to it, which is a real shame as well. But of course, everyone that bought a ticket was just as entitled as the next person to have a ticket. So by removing this and not holding it anywhere, you're really missing that kind of that painting tree and those bottom branches. It's terrible to do, but those people that kind of enter the young bloods for the first time and get really excited about it. Maybe steal 5 minutes of Darren Latham and get a little bit of feedback, a little those things that really inspire someone to then go on and make a difference. And it's just become even more elitist now, because not only is it impossible to get to it in the UK, you've got to be good enough where it's worth buying a ticket on a plane. And that, I hope GW know they've messed up and fix that for 2025, because by not finding an alternative venue or even some kind of, I'd rather have arguments about top painters not getting a ticket and them doing something at GW again, at Warhammer World, than not doing it at all. Even if they did 2 heats and then the winners from those heats went forward, or the selected number went through to a 3rd round or something. I'm sure there are enough weekends where Warhammer World isn't booked out that they could do it this year. And I think if they really want to make it happen, they could have made it happen. To have a year on the winners board, a year with nothing there, just a dash because they didn't hold one in the UK, is a bit embarrassing, I'd say. Anyway, we talked about that for a long time.
They jumped the number on the one that's in there at the moment. I think they literally just skipped the year, because there's the one that's on the stairs in the exhibition for the Slayer swords, and I think the COVID year I think, or maybe corrected, I think it just jumps a year. I don't think there's a dash. I think it's literally just they cut a year out.
It's such a, I don't know. It's important, and I think they may be forgetting how important it is, not just to the potential winners, but the people who strive just to improve year on year, just to enter something, just to see their miniature behind a glass cabinet. It's not the same as having it in your local GW store. There's nothing like it at all. But in a IKEA display, Detolf display case in the front of a GW window is not the same as having it there where people are walking around. So anyway, one more thing news-wise, Dan, and you remember what this is?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now, because I'm terrible at this. Oh, right, yes, the fun one, which incidentally coincided with another fine example of its type. Scalpers, the old End and the Death. Part 3, Electric Boogaloo. So GW tried to sell this book twice. In my I'm not going to use the word humble, because it's not humble opinion at all. They completely spooned it, absolutely made a word I can't use on here of it. Completely for a 21st century e-commerce business, they were made to look like amateurs, complete morons, because their idea of trying to counteract modern day scalpers was a catch for which a chat bot can get round in no time at all. So obviously the scalpers, and they are very well organized, have subscription services that you can adhere to and all sorts of other stuff. Realized how much money this book was going to be worth. It's the last of a series, and they got hit once. Then GW, admittedly to their defense, decided to pull the list apart and cancel a load of people's orders to restock. Apparently were threatened with legal action, which is hilarious. And then tried to resell them at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon when people have jobs.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange
time. So that was stupid. And then proceeded to make an even bigger mess of it the second time round, and the scalper still got them all anyway. So, incidentally, though, if you put it into X or Twitter or whichever way you want to put it, apparently Sleep Token tickets were being sold at the same time. They're a band, apparently.
Sorry?
I don't know who they are. Sleep Token.
Never heard of them.
We're old now, so we're not allowed anymore.
True.
We're off to live on the farm. Apparently they were really badly scalped as well, but that's just because Ticketmaster are basically the devil. Because everything ends up on StubHub, and at £60 million more than it should be. Apparently 15 grand for a concert ticket. Don't get who they are, unless they've literally resurrected the entire. Unless Bon Scott's come back from the grave to play for AC/DC, I am paying 15 grand. See you later. However, they made a complete mess of that. I mean, I lost out on part 1, so I didn't have a horse in this race. So while I was incredibly disappointed, I wasn't surprised, and I'd gotten over it, and I've been reading them. I get the ebooks. I've got the ebooks for the last few, and I'm going to sell my collection anyway. A lot of heartbroken people out there.
Yeah,
and that's the
got all the
problem.
way
They
to the
should
final.
have.
You got knocked out in the quarterfinal, but obviously the people that made their way to the final and then lost on penalties.
That's two football analogies in one episode, Stu. I think you're going to have a word with yourself.
Oh, I could have even brought in extra time then with the extra sales.
No, come on, be part of the solution. But I think the problem we've got, I mean, I've made no bones about it. I would have never got involved with the limited edition books in the first place had they not delayed the standard editions for 3 months.
Yeah.
I did it entirely to get around spoilers. It was only for Echoes of Eternity, I believe, that they actually released them at the same time.
Yes.
Which was book 7, plus 2 shorts, or 3 shorts by that point, I think, actually.
So it sounds like they listened and they have done some things. They've been trying to.
But they should just NTO them. I don't particularly care. I've got Adam. I mean, fair enough. Adam Dembski Bowden, the signature's awesome because he does it like the original Metallica logo, which is cool. But I don't care. And I don't care about it being a limited edition. I just wanted nice books, and more importantly, I wanted them all to match, and I didn't want to get cut by spoilers.
Yeah,
because I haven't slept much in the last 2 days to get through the book as well.
I think they could do it differently. I think they could do the limited edition style, so the leather bound style. Well, first off, I think they should all be released, like you said, on the same day, and I think they are now. So audio,
they are now,
ebook, a special edition. Like this was released the same day as the special edition for that. Great, all at the same time. So I think that's important. But I wonder if they could also go leather bound style. And then the only thing that's limited is the signed copies with a nice little plaque in it or something signed, and they're numbered. Yeah. But that's so people that want the collection with them all looking the same with the leather bound book style, cosmetically, they could still buy that for their collection. And then the expensive ones, the real collectors, I think it is nice to have things that are limited for collectors, but then you've got to back that up with e-commerce as well, and e-commerce that works.
Only in store port terminals, and that way, if scalpers come in, you could take them outside and beat them with sticks.
Okay, yeah. I think, yeah, maybe. I don't know if that's the answer because there are people that can't make it. It's always going to cut someone out.
Someone's got to lose out. But rather than us all, and we all end up having to play scalper roulette.
Yeah, maybe it's
600 quid on eBay.
A better solution.
It's a lesser of two evils, and yes, I feel sorry for you if you live on the Isle of Scilly or something. I get it. It sucks. However, at least the books end up in the hands for the majority of people who are actually going to care about them, rather than funding some reprobates Yeezy trainer habit or whatever it is they're doing. I don't even know what scalpers do with the money apart from laugh at people on the internet about it. And some of those comments are horrible.
Yeah,
the whole thing's just really unpleasant. And the worst thing is this is an event that's been 18 years in the coming. This book, it's taken nearly 18 years to get to the end of this journey. That's brought a lot of people on it. It's particularly this book it's the core of what 40k is. People have been into this lore for 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, not quite. 40k has not been quite that long, but some people have grown up with this. It's something they genuinely love and feel an emotional and economic attachment to. And the only thing that people have taken away from the entire thing not is the hard work Dan Abnett put in or the entire team of writers. It's not the world that's been created. None of that. All it is scalpers. All people care about is that whether the queue paused, and that's awful. And that's the really awful thing about it is the only people who won out of it is the scalpers. They made their bucks. And everyone else lost. And there are people saying, "Oh, GW don't care because, the board won't care because they sold 2,500 copies. They got their margin." However, there's probably an awful lot of people in it who do really care. I doubt.
Yeah, I don't think that's true, and I think we need to be mindful that scalping So there's a lot of stuff we've left unsaid here for casual observers of this, the people who don't follow it. So we obviously talked about the final heresy book, End of the Death, and we're talking about that there were quite a few published screenshots from Reddit conversations where the scalpers there including posts on Instagram as well. There's actual pages
crowing.
for crowing about it, or people who do this as a job there. They make their living, and they don't even, scalping, essentially buying limited edition stuff. They call themselves resellers, don't they?
Or drop shippers and stuff like that, which has its place. But what they're doing is basically just stripping the back off people who've got a genuine interest in something.
Well, they have. It's almost an underground, but it's because they're not breaking any laws. They're just buying stuff and reselling it. Of course they're able to do it, and it's business. I don't think it's a nice business, but it is business, and business is always buying and selling.
Do you know what I liken it to? It's that bloke in the States who bought the that drug patent. And I can't remember what it was for, but basically he's in prison now for something else, which is hilarious. But he bought the patent for a drug of some description. I want to say something to do with diabetes, and he put the price up by however many hundreds of percent just to make a profit on something that was potentially life-saving.
Save lives,
And although it's not, doesn't have that seriousness to it, it is essentially
it's that mentality,
you've got people over a barrel and you're determined to ream them for it.
Yeah,
I mean, what was it they said on this thing on stream? We've got the Warhammer community on a string.
Yeah,
and I think that's just vile.
And they'll be the same with, and they do the same with trainers. They do the same with PlayStations. It's the same kind of people who do it, and that's their.
Well, they've just recently done that Apple VR thing. They've absolutely battered that.
So it's, but the reason I brought that up is because the perspective is clearly it's not just GW. Lots and lots of online retailers are struggling for ways to deal with them. And it sounds at the moment that the software that these people are using to have multiple accounts open to just keep buying these things, because you've got to use different addresses, you've got to use different cards, and they can get around that. There's all these, I don't know what they do, but they showed some there was some screenshots that are quite eye-opening of all in the email address, all these different confirmed sales and things. So it was a little bit eye-opening. We always knew scalpers existed, but for it to actually see it on an Instagram account with someone showing in a video, this is all the orders I've done. It's really quite interesting, I suppose. So it's a bigger problem, and it's not just GW don't care, but they might need to look at. There's two things. One is the limited editions and how you handle it, and the second thing is stock in general. Because if you're struggling to maintain stock in your businesses, you're going to attract people. I think it's probably different. The people who are buying sets of Warhammer the Old World, I don't think it's quite the same way.
No,
I think it's more really opportunists within the hobby themselves that are buying a few to turn over a small profit for themselves. I don't think it's quite the same as these organized people who do it as their business. I think they're kind of generally Warhammer resellers, some more genuine than others. But anyway, we've probably battered that to death, unfortunately. I'll be looking forward to listening to the audios. Now that third one is out, I will listen to all three. I didn't want to start until they were all out, and I will do them back to back, probably after I've finished this, maybe. Right, let's take a real short break because there's a long news section, and we'll come back afterwards and talk about what we've been up to in the hobby. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. And we're back. So to start with, we actually met up in person for a little while. We don't get to do it very often, usually once or twice a year. But we met up at Warhammer World for some more time with Jordan from the Jordan Sorcery channel. Obviously, we talked about it on the show before. We said we were going to do it, and that was on the 19th, which turned out to be the day before the open day in Nottingham. And we were all staying up on the Friday night because we're going out for dinner afterwards. So it was perfect timing. We rolled it into an excuse to go to the Warhammer World Open Day as well. As much as the Old World Open Day, and as much as I would have wanted to go, it would have definitely logistically been a little bit harder just to go up on the day. But by being there, it's perfect. But let's talk about Mordheim first, anyway. So we met up 10 o'clock-ish in the morning, and pretty much just hung out at Warhammer World all day until they closed at 6. They closed a little bit early. Normally they're open till 8 or even 10 o'clock, I think, on a Friday night. I think probably 10. We were planning on leave. We'd have left by then anyway because we're going off for dinner and things. But we stayed there for the whole day, played 3 games of Mordheim, which I ran as a bit of a narrative thing, almost role play-esque at times, or role play elements. It was all I originally wanted to do it so we could all three of us play, and then I thought, well, how are we going to work it so we all get equal games, and what should we do? And then this narrative formed in my head, and I thought it'd be fun to almost run the games for Dan and Jordan, and build them as a narrative story, and have lots of NPCs and things, and have a bit of fun with it. And as soon as I got the idea, I realized that was you two would probably have the most fun doing it like that, because you both get to be playing all the games. And I thought, I'm going to have more fun running the games as well. So it was good fun. I did sort of join in on the last game a bit more. I joined in every game running the NPCs, but
you
my
turned
own
up at the end,
warband
shot some stuff, and then yeah.
Well, my own warband were kind of semi NPCs in the last game anyway. And I kind of, rather than completely randomly controlling them, I did use a little bit of what I thought was the best thing to do, but it definitely added some spice to the final few turns of that final game. But
except for that one bloke on the walls who determined to sit there and look into the corner for pretty much the entire duration of the game.
Yes, yeah, he was just one of the pure NPCs. That guy, he just did nothing apart from. I was controlling players with scatter dice and moving these NPCs around with scatter dice, and they were like sentries on the wall. So basically, we're set in the Border Princes in the timeline of the old world. In my own Bretonnian armies sort of lore in their own town in the Border Princes. So some of my painted miniatures were there, and they were like sentries on the walls. And Dan's Skaven and Jordan's and where are they from?
Marienburgers.
God, yeah. Jordan's Marienburgers were searching for an artifact
on the shelf.
Yes, well, yeah. Just it was one of those. I knew I was going, and I keep wanting to say Middenheim. It's not Middenheim, but Paul Jordan, he'll be very cross with me for not being able to say Marienburg as well. Yes, but they were looking for an artifact, and the whole idea of the 3 linked scenarios is that the final scenario they'll be finding the artifact, but they had to do different things. The first one is to get into the town. And the second one was to find the location of the artifact. The third one was to find the artifact. So there's lots of little interactions. They could meet NPCs, they could recruit NPCs or attack them, or Dan just tried to kill everything. So lots of fun, lots of random tables I designed, and I will be doing a video talking about what I designed and how I did it, and how I sort of changed Mordheim. Basically, we used Mordheim's combat mechanics, really, didn't we? So we played Mordheim, but we ditched the campaign system and managed that differently. So it was three linked scenarios, and then all of the campaign side was me doing it rather than the rolling and spending money from one thing to the next. They could get benefits and things to take. It made it quicker on the day and more streamlined. And because it was limited to those 3 games, it meant that I could keep it more balanced as well. So everyone was going to be back to full strength each scenario, which would have been needed. Otherwise, it could have hampered you definitely needed it in the final game with all the extra NPCs around and the extra warband turning up. You needed your full complements, or otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So by removing the campaign, the proper campaign system from Mordheim, and running this kind of trimmed down version where you got little buffs and basically you're finding artifacts and maybe recruiting extra NPCs that suddenly become characters that you can use in your warbands. And then the other thing was information. You could get information about where things were hidden or where entrances were to get to certain places. I thought it was good fun. I really enjoyed hanging out all day. Lots of people came over and said hello, mostly to Jordan, obviously, because he's a superstar on the YouTubes. Everyone loves his stuff, but quite a few people came over and a few people said hello. Lots of people came and looked at the board. It seemed to attract quite a few people, which was nice. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So people won't get that reference. Actually from the UK of a certain era and watch comedy. But yeah, it was really anyone that came over and said nice things about the miniatures and the board and things, that was great. Dan had his wonderfully painted Skaven there, which we showed on the last episode. I had lots of fun. What about yourself, Dan? Any thoughts on it above my ramblings?
No, I mean, it was giggle. It was obviously Jordan was there before us. He was there on the Thursday because he travelled and stuff. So I think you'd arrived shortly before I did. I got slightly caught up on the road. Yeah, we were there before 10, and he literally strolled up as I walked to meet your van, which is almost impossible to miss.
Yes, yeah.
It's exceptionally orange.
It's a big orange VW transporter, yeah.
It's very orange. Like, it's Network Rail orange.
It's orange.
It's not burnt sunset. It's
it's very similar. It wasn't XREC, but it looks like an REC kind of orange almost.
So yeah, we had a really good time. The one thing we hadn't really thought to count on was the fact that Jordan's veggie. So that meant some frantic scrabbling about the evening plans for where to eat, because I think the original talk was barbecue.
Yes, so you'd planned in a barbecue sauce, but that's fine.
But we tried the new menu. You had a salad.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
I did. Yeah, well,
a light bite that came out as the size of a bloody.
It was a massive salad, and I'm really glad I went for it. After sausage and bacon butty in the morning, and then knowing we were going on to eat something substantial, which we did in the evening.
Yes.
I didn't want another plate of meat and carbs, because otherwise I'd have been falling asleep in the afternoon, standing there at the game with meat sweats and all the rest of it going on. So I thought, a nice salad. I can recommend it, though. There's a lot of Parmesan on there, and it was quite pungent.
There was a lot of Parmesan. We had a really good time. Really, really good time. And I we didn't really drink, did we? It was weird. We didn't really have anything, I don't think, until the evening.
One beer with lunch and stuff. We were just talking through the whole way through. I mean, we didn't even we were discussing whether we'd go to the miniatures exhibition that day or the next day. We didn't go.
No, either day.
Crazy. I mean, I'd been a couple of weeks before with not a couple of weeks, about a month before with Jacob, but we just didn't go in the end.
No.
But just really relaxed, really chilled. It wasn't too busy in there. I like Warhammer World when it's busy, but I quite like it when there's 20, 30 people in there and there's lots of free tables. Just love that place. It's so nice and welcoming and friendly, relaxing, and it's just cool to be in there. Really nice atmosphere. Staff are always super nice, whether it's behind the bar, whether it's in the shop. It's just
they were really
a really nice place to be. Good for your mental well-being. That place, it's got a good vibe about it.
Yeah, it's not good for your wallet, but actually,
that side.
I didn't buy a single miniature all weekend, or Friday, Saturday.
I didn't buy anything until the Saturday. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't buy a single thing. It was really nice to see some people as well. People who work at head office at GW, they popped in to say hello to us, which was really lovely. And obviously we saw a bunch on Saturday as well. But yeah, it was a really, really good day playing Mordheim. It's a game I've not played in such a long time, but it does come back to you. Lots of opportunities. It's definitely a game system that gives you so much opportunity to play narratively, to have a laugh with it, like Jordan's Griffhound deciding to nosedive off a balcony and basically plant itself, knocked itself out and killed itself.
Because it was going to do that. The height it dived off, was it 3 rolls?
3 rolls, yeah. He only missed one initiative, but then unfortunately it did take itself completely out of action.
Yes.
But it was a really, really fun day. I mean, obviously you put a lot of time and effort into the board, and I think as much as Jordan and I, in our respective capacities, put efforts into our war bands, etc., the board was the star. And actually, if anyone's not watched the video, it's on this channel, please go do, but it doesn't actually really do it justice. It looks really good in person. It's properly cool, apart from his horrible crusty mat. It's a really good idea, but it is disgusting.
Yes.
But, it's like teenagers' bed sheets. It's not good. It's
it's a little bit crusty, but it does the job. It's fitting a terrain board style thing into a slightly rollable mat.
Yeah,
and it traveled okay. Cool. It's come back, and it could do it again, but I'm not going to do too many journeys with it.
No.
But it was good fun. I mean, thanks for the kind words about the board. But yeah, it was nice. People came up and saw the board and called the events team. I'm not going to mention names. I don't know if they want their names mentioned, but the people that work at the events team, and they were there, obviously working ready for the next day, doing some bits, but they came over and chatted for a few times. So yeah, that was
It's
really,
quite
really nice.
gratifying. I think it'd be fair to say it. A few of them went, "You bringing this tomorrow?" And we were like, "We didn't know we could."
No, if someone asked ahead of time, then
yeah,
then I would have done. But yeah, that's
sadly not.
doesn't matter. It was cool. It was cool, and
It was very cool. It was so it was a lot of people who clearly remember it, and then a lot of people who never knew it but were interested in what we're up to. I think that's a really nice thing as well. Capture. I think people, if they see other people doing cool stuff, even if they don't know what it is, it's
yeah,
interesting. It's something you've not seen before, and Warhammer Ward's generally quite a good place to go and see that kind of thing.
yeah.
So
Well,
yes,
but towards the end of the day, a couple of guys came and played on the table next to us playing Mordheim as well, and there's
they were
staff. I don't know
studio,
studio. I don't know
and
who
their war bands were
oh,
bonkers.
incredible, absolutely incredible. It's part of the
Scratch
studio
built
league. He said,
Carnival of Chaos. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely mental.
I didn't
Beautiful,
take.
beautiful
I
thing.
didn't write their names down, but partly because I don't know if they
No.
want us talking about them on the on the internet anyway. Because they so, but yeah, the studio guys. I don't know what they did in the studio either, or even what
Yeah.
studio they work for. But it was quite cool, and just a chance just ended up booked in on the table next to us.
Next to us.
But yeah, the kind of the chaos stuff was incredible. In fact, they were both incredible war bands.
The
Really,
Beastman
really nice.
was really beautiful. I'm totally stealing his Bray Shaman idea. Absolutely doing it because I just want I want to do it myself and paint it. So you will see that at some point this year on this channel, and I will endeavour through people I know to try and find out who that individual is to say thank you. So and then yeah, we had a really cool evening. Went out and we got curry, which was good. Lads, get curry.
Not that kind of wasn't that kind of
No,
place, was it?
really not at all. I think it'd be
Mowgli's not
appreciated
like
what's
that.
over there. No, but surprisingly affordable actually. That's for anyone who wants to go to Nottingham, enjoys curry. Mowgli's really good.
Well, they're
And
a
I was
chain.
surprised by how low the bill was. Yeah, I don't know where anywhere else they
They're
are.
a chain. They're a chain. So there's one in Cheltenham. So
Oh, I've never seen them anywhere else.
there were a few dotted around a few more places as well. So if you live in a city, or a place like
I live in a town
Cheltenham,
with a
I imagine
cathedral.
there's probably a few more knocking about. But yeah, I will recommend it's Indian street food, isn't it? So you get lots of smaller portions.
Those
And
chat bomb things that
yeah,
Jordan ordered with the
good.
yogurt stuff in there were really
good.
good.
But yeah, go and try it out if you've got one near you. It's reasonable priced. It's not as cheap as getting a curry takeaway or a multi somewhere, but also not that much more at all.
No,
you know, we went for set menus and they were 20
phenomenal.
they were 20 quid, weren't they? And
yeah, Tiffins.
yeah, and they
if anyone's ever seen those, they were cool.
Well, I never leave stuff on my plate, and I had to leave a little bit because
yeah, I've regretted.
I decided to stop so that I could walk home. But yeah, it was good. Lovely evening, just chatting. A couple of drinks, not even many, and so it's just not.
No,
it's very unlike those events normally are for me. But it was lovely. We just found a quiet
proper
pub
nostalgia
afterwards.
fest as well. Talking to Jordan about because we're all unfortunately men of a certain age, so we were around for a lot of this formative Warhammer stuff, and there's a lot of stuff we could go, oh, do you remember? And yeah, which we're all nerds. We enjoy doing that kind of thing.
Good wargaming chat, and I suppose the other reason that we didn't start too late is because we realised that we probably needed to be up early the next day, and it turned out we did. So we're chatting to the guys from the events team, and they were at that point they were under the impression that it was going to be busy the next day. And we'll come back to how busy it was and whether that met their expectations or not later on, because we spoke to them the next day as well. But they said that they thought it might be busy, and the Warhammer World Facebook page had put out an announcement saying we think it's going to be busy. Once it's full, we'll have to hold the queue outside, etc. So if there's we'll count people in. Once it's full, you'll have to wait outside, and you won't be able to come in until there's enough space, kind of thing. And we thought, we don't want to be queuing outside for too long. Saying that, we got there so early that we were queuing outside for a very long time, and you may have already seen the video I've done on this, so you'll know this. But so we got there. The plan was to get there for 7:30, wasn't it? So we got up, had our breakfast in the hotel, and
8:30.
8:30. Sorry, yeah, 8:30.
Yeah, I was going to say
we got up at 7:30. Sorry, met for breakfast at 7:30, which isn't very interesting for people to know.
We were told what breakfast was.
Yeah, we were. bless her. Have you ever had breakfast before? Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Bless. She obviously it could be one of those things that you can imagine us going, oh, I can't believe I just said that. But anyway, we got there for 8:30, didn't we? Got the Uber over 8:30, dumped the bags in the van, and we were probably 40th in the queue, 30, somewhere between 30 and 40. So fairly early on in the context of how big that queue got. And go and watch my other video rather than coming, you'll get a much better idea of the length of that queue, but it was huge and ended up going out of the car park in the end. And they were great to start with. Well, they were great all the time, but when we first got there, they brought out hot coffees and teas and stuff. The Bugman staff did. And they didn't have to do that, but they just realized that it was quite cold at that point. It's warmed up a little bit now in the UK. But
I'm glad it wasn't the Friday, because it was cold on Friday morning.
Yeah, it was really much colder on the Friday. It was all minus temperatures at that time on the Friday. But so we were standing out there a little bit chilly, queued for an hour and a half essentially. But I'm glad we did, because we got in on the first batch of people going in. I was able to, I mean, it was a real scrum for what was on sale there. I managed to get all the things I wanted to get. So I'm very lucky to do that. And I appreciate people watching this that haven't. When I grabbed the questing knight, which I've just done a painting tutorial for, there was 2 left on the rack. I grabbed, no, it wasn't. I think I was the Tomb King BSB, actually. There was 2 left on the rack. And I grabbed the very last, it might have been the very last questing knight, and definitely the very last foot damsel. And there were just racks of it empty. And, bearing in mind, I was probably 40th back. So the initial, they probably didn't have, who knows how many they had, because it was the time I got there and I was leaning over people to grab those. And all the magic cards and things went really quickly as well, because you weren't able, even you being that early, you weren't able to grab magic cards.
Someone tried to grab a couple, had them taken off him, and then passed out to others, so I missed out on a roundabout for the normal magic cards. Mr. Grabby, if you're out there, shame on you, one per person.
I've already got. I pre-ordered those.
There'll be glad I got items. Them. So I'm not too fussed about those.
They'll be back, and all of the stuff will be back. But are we talking about stock?
Army cards, I believe. I don't think they'll come back.
Those ones, yeah, I can imagine so. Because once the initial excitement goes with those boxes, and that will be the thing next. Well, massive tangent now, but that'll be the thing with the next thing. Even though I'm not a huge Orcs and Goblins player, I'll be picking up the Arcane Journal for them, and I will want to pick up that army card pack, because they're relatively inexpensive, and if it's only the one, that might be the only other thing I buy apart from the odd new miniature for painting on the channel. I won't be buying the army box. I don't need it. I'm not collecting Orc and Goblin army. My son's already got enough.
By the looks of things, it's not quite the same as it's not the same as the army boxes for Team Kings and Bretonnia, because it's not.
No, it's not. It's a battalion
regiment
box.
Battalion box. That's it, like the old school ones.
Like the old school one. The larger ones, not the really small ones. The largish size ones.
It was the ones they did at about £100 price point previously, didn't they?
One point. It could be similar now.
Well, one point that did frustrate me, I will say, is literally as we're walking in at 10 on the dot, they released the Warcom, which is fine.
It doesn't bother me, to be honest with you.
But what did annoy me was the fact they didn't have the models out in the cabinet. So actually, the people who are at home got a better deal than me, who's outside for 90 minutes.
I think the problem there was it was mentioned in a Warhammer World Facebook post about the event, because all the communication for that event is in that Facebook post, and it says somewhere it says on the day you'll be able to find out what it was. I think it's just the way it's worded.
It's more the fact that you could look at the new models in the video. They had everything from the Orcs and Goblins in a cabinet. Except the new models.
I'm not disputing that. It's the timing of it. I've got no problem with the timing of it. Because they always do release stuff on Warcom. They have to. It's the only fair way of doing it, rather than so. And there was no announcement. It's not like there was coming to if there was a seminar at the open day, and you'd paid for a ticket to see it, and that's when the announcement was supposed to be, then I could say, why announce it on Warcom before that?
But not so much the fact that it dropped at the same time. It's the fact that the models were on the preview, but they weren't at the actual open day.
All the old stuff is, by the way, it's just the brand new models.
But
so everything else you saw in the previews, but the two new models, that's all it is, isn't it? 2 new models.
Yeah, but they're really pretty.
Yeah, they're lovely. And I don't know why they weren't there. I'm not sure why they weren't there, but yeah, it would have been nice to have seen them in a bit. It seemed like, I wonder if it's something as simple as someone didn't put them out or something and it wasn't realized, or
probably,
maybe they're being used for photography for White Dwarf or something like that, and they just happened to be in the offices and haven't finished with them. So many things it could be, but it was a little bit of a, when I originally heard they weren't there, I thought it meant the whole thing wasn't there, but everything else was there. It's just those two models. But anyway, back to the stock bit.
Polished though, that was a bit
yeah, back to the stock bit, because this is important if people haven't seen the other video. They didn't sell out of core boxes and rule books, any of the rule books, as far as I could tell, up until the point I left, and I think that carried on. And there was a queue. So when we bought stuff, you basically just queue up as normal. It was a long queue. It was probably about 10, 15 people. Long queue. Nothing compared to what it was turns out to be later on. Then we wandered through into the main area and started chatting to people and hanging out and all of that kind of stuff. And then more and more of that big outside queue were being allowed in, up to the point of 300, and people were just grabbing their stuff because they came to buy their launch boxes, and they had the queue. So those of you who've been to Warhammer World before will know that you got two sets of tills. You got sets of tills in what was the old Forge World store, which now is the kind of specialist game store, I'd say now. It's all of the resins and stuff, Heresy, Blood Bowl, Middle Earth, that's all in the one side, and then you have the GW main line on the other side. So you got two banks of two tills essentially. And what they were doing is people allowed to pick their stuff up, and then they were having to queue, and they were running the queue all the way around the edge of the Warhammer World playing area, which was cleared for the event, and then back into the second door, the rear door of the specialist games or Forge World store, the one that's close to the entrance to Bugman's. And if you don't know,
well, I think initially the queue was going into Bugman's, and the Bugman staff came in and kicked everyone out and started curling it around.
Cut it off beforehand. But it got to the point where they had to have someone basically managing, 2 or 3 people managing that queue the whole time. And that stayed, I think it was about 1 o'clock before that died off, wasn't it? Before it got down to just a busy in-store queue. And I mean busy, I mean back to the 10, 15 people queuing at each till constantly to buy stuff. And it was, people were still queuing when I left, and I left about 2-ish. But that queue definitely ran.
It was because it was still covering the entry tables for the Legends of Paint up until pretty much the point that closed for entries.
Yeah, and probably a few minutes afterwards. And they let your, who was it? They let him, was Martin, wasn't it? Sean, sorry, Sean. I've chatted to you quite a bit, but I met him before. I didn't correct. So they let Sean in just to enter his miniature, and then kind of booted him back out, and not completely out, back outside again, back into the queue. It was really nice of them to allow him to get his entry.
Yeah, I think they did it for a few people, and let them get back into the queue where they were.
Because essentially it became a retail queue, because people were queuing up just to purchase stuff, and first come first served. So they did everything they could. Again, we spoke to the event staff that day, and they were like, so when you said it might be busy, what do you think? And the look on their face was just like, this is insane kind of busy. And there's all kinds of stories now, isn't there, about it being the busiest it's ever been. It's all over the internet groups and things about it. It's been the busiest Warhammer World's ever been, etc. Well, who knows how they get those figures, or how people on the internet know those things. But I can see the busiest.
That you know.
It's the busiest it's ever been since I've been there, and I've been to a couple of open days there. Open days with staff that you could talk to. So it's the busiest it's ever been, and it was good, wasn't it? I thought it was pretty good. So you had a massive display. You could see each of the armies and the cabinets that they released so far, including the orcs, apart from the 2 new ones. There was lots of people playing games. There were some play testers there. They were clearly playing games, but there were open tables you could turn up and play. There were 3 demo tables. There was the painting competition. And then there were things that we didn't go to, the other side of Bugman's. There was the thing you had to pay for, which is their scrap demon. So you basically get to go and pick up some bits and make something. And then there was a painting night thing as well. And there was a painting a foot night, which I really wanted to go and do, but I didn't want to paint the foot night there. I thought I'm torn now because I don't have foot knights because they're not out yet, and I really want to paint one. I really want to do a tutorial on one, but I would have painted one there and brought it home and stripped it so I could do a tutorial, or I can just wait and build them the way I want. So I decided not to spoil that. First working on one of those miniatures with one that's kind of handed to you in a box. But I kind of half regret not going to do that now. It seems a wasted opportunity to get a free foot knight. But that was that really. I left you because I had to get back and pick up my stuff from Incom Gaming. Actually pick up my actual books, which are on the shelf behind me, and my Peg BSB and bits and bobs. So I had to drive back and get to Cheltenham in time to pick them up before Incom closed. And I was tired by that point anyway, and spoke to lots of people. Nice to see people I haven't seen for a while. Bumped into quite a few people, which is really, really nice. People from the heresy scene days and big to Gino events
Pete
and stuff. It was really good.
Yes.
Pete, yeah. So yeah, saw quite a few people. So it was really, really nice. That was that really. So do you want to talk? Do you want to roll the painting bit in now into your own hobby? It just rolls straight in, then, doesn't it?
That was my principal thing for going, if I'm honest, for the open day, especially as we've covered old ground, but my counts, blah blah blah. So my principal interest was going, one, to see, and two, to enter the competition. So I quickly painted up a base for my vampire, and took him along. So I whacked him in. There's some really nice stuff in the cabinet. Some beautiful, really beautiful stuff. Yeah, came away with gold, which was really nice. Really nice.
Absolutely.
I didn't stay terribly much longer than you. Literally, I was only really waiting until they'd done the judging and I could collect my miniatures, and then jump in the car and head home because much, like you, because we're both old men, I'd had enough. My social battery had kind of run out by that point as well, a little bit, if I'm honest. I am antisocial by nature. So it was really good to see people. There was some really cool stuff going on. I mean, again, it's worth mentioning that table. They'd done the new display table. Stunning. Really, really stunning. And the fact that someone's painstakingly carved that entire castle out of the blue foam. Bonkers.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Again, there's pictures of it in the video roundup I did of that day. So if you haven't seen that already, it's worth going to watch it. The first half of the video is all about open day. The second half is me talking about my thoughts on the Orc and Goblin release. But we're going to watch it if you want to see some pictures of it. So the congratulations, we quite quickly there scooted over you getting a gold. So congratulations on gold. Did they do an overall, or was it just a number of gold levels going out, number of silvers,
number of golds,
number of bronzes?
I believe Lewis Collins got a gold. There was a chap, I did speak to him on the way out and I've forgotten his name and I feel bloody awful about it now, but he painted a dwarf. It was the dwarf on that sort of spike of ice. He got a gold as well.
Yep. Yeah, for me, looking at the entries, the ones I remember, I think there were a couple more added, or they were being viewed, and I didn't see them all. But looking at when I was there, I can imagine there being maximum of 8 gold, but maybe as low as 3 or 4, sort of thing. It's hard to guess, isn't it?
I don't know.
And then
I didn't really know until I got given mine because mine was sat on the top shelf and I couldn't see over the top of that.
Yeah,
it looked, you couldn't tell in the light. Gold looks like bronze.
I knew you were going to get something. You can get, if you've been to a few painting competitions, and I've been a few, I've run them as well. You get an idea, you get a feel for the field there. I would have been very surprised if I drove home confident that you were going to get. I thought it would be silver or gold. I didn't know who was judging it, on how they were judging it. So I'd have been surprised if you didn't get one of those too. And I think the gold, from what I saw, gold was very much well deserved. But you never know what criteria they give and whether they have a set number of them. Sometimes even just the practicality of only got 5 gold badges here. I got to cut. We've got to cut the weights. And I think the idea is you just achieve that standard, isn't it? And you achieve a gold, you get a gold regardless of how many golds are given out. And I love that. Talk to you a little bit about the P3 painting scoring that they used to do. And P3 is the paint range for privacy of press, horse and war machine horse. when they run painting competitions, they would do that. You'd have a gold standard, a silver, and a bronze, and then you'd have your overall winners and your overall second or third place. If no one reached the gold standard, you could have a silver, but they'd also be the overall event winner as well. But it would mean you'd have multiple scoring of silvers and bronzes and things, but they'd only pick one overall winner from each category as well. So it's a lovely way of rewarding more people and keeping people motivated. I think it's a lovely way of doing it. You get that a little bit with Golden Demon with the pins and the commended entries now. It works in a similar kind of way because it gives people at different levels things to aim for. And it means sometimes that minor money difference that makes the difference between someone that achieves a level, one is better than another. It's really hard to gauge anyway. So you can still say you win, but you're both gold or something like that. And I think that's a really, really nice thing to do. And you send more people away motivated and happy with it and rewarded for the hard work that they've put in, rather than I've just missed out by one misplaced highlight or whatever happened to be. But congratulations anyway, well deserved from what I saw.
Thank you. Wasn't quite sure how that would go because my lamp decided to go pop the week running up, which was fantastic, just what I wanted. So I had to buy a new lamp. So got a new lamp. As it turns out, it's actually the adapter that's what went bang. Even though I took the entire thing apart and there was some evidence of heat damage on the LED board, I think that's just wear and tear. So what I'm going to do is, when they become available and when they're back in stock, I'm going to get a new adapter.
Yeah.
And then my old lamp will live in its box and be what I take to events or take to painting, days or tutorials or whatever, go to good courses. I've
had them. I messaged you when you told me and said, have you checked the power pack? Because that's what happened to me. And I only found out
sealed units, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I've had three now. They're all replaced under warranty. And it's been when I replaced the first one, I realized at that point that it was the power pack, because I just tried the power pack, and the other one I went, oh, it does still work. And then I got another one replaced because it's under warranty. But yeah, if anything goes now outside of warranty, it's done through Amazon. I got it still under warranty. So it's the actual lamps themselves have got hours and hours and hours in them, but more hours than the actual power packs have. And it's these days of sealed units with, it's just the fuse gone, isn't it? It's just back in the days when you just change a plug fuse yourself, it wouldn't happen. So you could probably buy a third party power pack. But anyway, that's not very interesting for people. But if you do have a Daylight Company bulb and it doesn't turn on, just check your power pack first, because it might be that's all that needs replacing.
Yes.
So what happened?
Yeah, there's that. So, roundabout, I mean, it's not, I don't want to play it off as being an inconsiderate amount of money. It is not money you necessarily want to spend all the time. Luckily, I was in a position where I could just order a new one. I was able to get one very, very quickly. So that was good. So I was able to finish it off and get the model ready for the weekend. But yeah, didn't help. I'm just looking at my list of things because my brain's now not braining so good. So another thing is we've spoken before about Generation Shift. Matt, he provides bases. Predominantly he's worked for Middle-earth because that's his primary level of interest. He's just started working on 32mm bases, which is great. So I'm going to be grabbing some of those off him, I think, for an upcoming project that I've got to work on. I have a massive pile of sprues sat somewhere down there, and that's going to be worked on over the coming months because I've got pretty much organised a game against someone for early summer, so it needs to be done ready for that.
Good.
So for those who haven't heard of Generation Shift, I'd absolutely recommend it for your 25mm, 40mm, 60mm, etc. Middle-earth related basing needs. However, 32
they're fantasy. They'll work for any fantasy, won't they? But the what limited it to Middle-earth is the base sizing. So that's
yes, yeah. I mean, they're really some of them are sort of very much should we say setting agnostic. So you could use them for a lot of other stuff. In fact, the vampire I painted for the weekend, he was on one of Matt's 40mm scenics.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Beautiful really bases, well. But yeah, he makes them primarily for the Middle Earth scene, and they're to those base sizes. But yeah, if you wanted to put
He's
them for AOS or something,
invested.
you may find you don't get the size you need. But yeah, the 32s is going to change that a bit.
Yeah,
I
he's
suppose
just
the other base
invested
size you
in
do would be 28s as well. Do AOS use 28s?
He's looking at that. He's looking at, some of them do, and some of the 40k ones do, in fairness, but he's looking at those as well. I know he's just bought a new pressure pot and another bunch of other stuff to you know, increase the quality as well. And some of the tests he sent me a couple of pictures. Really impressive. Really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. And he's a super nice bloke.
One of the nicest people in the entire world, almost
really,
to the point where it's really irritating. Love the guy, but absolutely recommend his bases. So I just thought I'd put that out there, that the 32s are coming. So if you are, shall we say, 40k inclined, there may be options. And last but not least, obviously we touched on it before, End of the Death Part 3 came out. So that's been my last thing I've been doing since Saturday when the ebook dropped. Because I went and got tattooed. So after that, I didn't feel like doing anything. For those of you who may have noticed, I've been fidgeting more than usual. It's in an area that makes sitting still for a long time is not pleasant. Leave the rest of it to your imagination. So I've been laying on my front reading for a lot. So yeah, that finished that yesterday night, which was, I'm not going to spoil anything. There will be no spoilers here. I don't believe in that. I think it's wrong. As earlier alluded to, this is the culmination of 18 years worth of books, which we were on the ground floor with, really. So it's been a long time. And then obviously if you're into 40k lore, since whenever you got into that, this is the very fundamentals of what that comes from. You know, the story of Horus and Sanguinius and Horus and the Emperor is almost the very kernel
paragraphs in 40k lore, literally paragraphs in rule books
forever. I mean, the artwork's been around forever. I mean, the old Mike McVeigh diorama, and then it's so much part of the fabric of what makes 40k. It would almost be impossible to imagine 40k without that particular part of the story. You can't imagine it.
And now it's been written properly.
It's done.
So.
It's done. I do believe, and this is no comment on the quality of the book or anything else. I'm not going to comment on any of that kind of thing. I believe Dan Abnett was set an impossible task, truly impossible. But I think what he achieved with style. Very much his. Makes sense. It's very much him.
I'm a huge fan of his anyway, so that's going to go a long way to
I'm glad he's done, because he can go and write Backwin 3 now. And that's what's important to me. But apparently it took him 2 years to write those 3 books, and he wrote them at the same time. And normally he'd write 4 novels in that period. So it does consume him, and you can tell. He's put the love in it. And like all things, particularly if it's something that's been part of you know, how your life, I suppose. Like when The Sopranos ended, for me, you know, if things you've been invested in for a long time, when it ends, there is a strange melancholy to it, I'll admit.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Just start again now, back to book 1.
Oh no, I'm going to read something else for a while. I don't need any more bolted porn. But yeah, so that's been the end of an era. So what have you been up to for hobby wise?
So let's start. I've waved this a couple of times. Last time I did, I got it too close to the camera and sent all the focus. But I've been reading this. In fact, I started reading this, and then I ended up listening to this because it came out on audio. And I won't go again, no spoilers, and I won't go into too much detail around it. Partly because I think Jordan and I are planning on doing a kind of, aside from the usual book club that we do on his channel, we're going to do a one-off if we have time to review the book. But it's good. I enjoy it. It's going to upset a lot of people. I think it already has upset a lot of people. Lore evolves.
A lot of people, didn't it?
Yeah, well, and that's related to that. There's quite a few things in there that trigger a certain kind of person. And I don't know if I want to cover it any more than that. I'll say very briefly that there are some things that you see more in the book now than you would have seen in old lore. And all I'll say is that 5th edition and 6th edition lore is very old. You know, the last lore we had before this is 20 years old, isn't it? And then and that changed as well from the previous book in 5th edition and what Brett's were before. And if you know, Jordan and I are discussing the GW books range, those 17 books that were the first books that were released, and Warhammer was very different in Wolfrup 1st edition. So Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 1st edition, the lore then. So lore changes. This isn't it's anyone with they've retconned everything. That's just a new word. That's a modern word, and of angry people on the internet about stuff does slowly evolve and change to match the times in which it's written. So that does mean that for a target market that's more modern, that certain things have to align with our society a little bit more as well. Some people won't like that, but you can also do what you want in your own head canon. And if that book isn't for you because there are more women in it, and other things as well, I haven't really discussed them with you, Dan, and I'm not going to get into it here as well. I'm enjoying it. So aside from the, I don't even think they're
I'm guessing is there. Are we going to have a Night of Flowers moment?
Let's,
because if they are good,
yeah, there's a few things, but nothing that I think dominates the story. I think it's just more modern. But aside from all of that, it's Graham McNeill. I like his writing a lot. It's no false gods, so it's not that kind of level of kind of grandeur and seriousness also, but it's a story on its own that you could continue these characters, but if nothing happened with those characters other than this book, it feels like it's designed to be a one-off. Who knows what happens in the future? So that's the first thing I'd say. I would say that it's a rip-roaring Warhammer novel, and that's very well written. I've got a chapter to go, so I can't give you the full opinion on it, but I don't think it's going to change my opinion on that final chapter that much. It's avoids the worst excesses of your, not bolter porn, but your sword porn kind of really bad, trashy novels. So it's not that kind of, you just fight after fight with no character development. The characters have personalities, they develop over time, they're likable, but then in no more depth than you would find than in a Sharp book. So they're kind of recognizable personalities and characters. So the knights are like British officers. That they got that. What especially the most gallant ones are. All of the characters that you see in there are very recognizable from a historical drama, and an easy watch historical drama, but that seems deliberately done. But I think it's done quite well in that sense. There's enough there.
So
it's not going to win awards. It's not going to win awards, but it's very well written and reads very easily, and the characters are enjoyable and likable enough, and the story's good enough as well. So it's not going to blow anyone away, and it's not going to be like, oh, this is like his Empire series, which is like, oh, I could see why this has won a Gemmell Award because this is amazing. This is different to that. But it's still a good read. As I say, it's a bit like reading a Bretonnian Sharp novel.
Does it make you excited to paint Bretonnians?
Yeah, I already was anyway.
Then it's doing its job.
But yeah, and it's not trash. It's not absolute trash at all, which it could have been. And some stuff is from Black Library. And as I said before, some novels I've put down. I enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed listening to it, and I'm going to read it again properly as well. Almost straight afterwards to make sure I haven't missed anything. So I can do the kind of the review with Jordan if we find time to do it. So yeah, I'm not going to try and pretend that it's kind of seminal like some of those heresy books were, but he's a very, very good writer, and he's written a lot of stuff now. So it's a well-written story for what it's designed to do. And I think it's quite enjoyable, and I would recommend it. Unless you get triggered by women, then that's probably not for you. But anyway, that's probably annoyed someone just by saying that. But let's move on from me talking about that book. What else I've been doing? I started to read the rule books and stuff a little bit, but I've mainly been focusing on doing my first army lists. And I've written a Grand Army list for the Bretts. I've written a Exiles army list minus the magical items at the moment. I've left about 250 points spare on each. So I'm just that early tinkering stage, partly so I can plan painting and things. I might have a game lined up towards the end of March, so I need to make sure that 2,000 points is done properly by then. So Easter weekend time. So we will see. But that's been fun, actually, just delving in and looking at two very different army lists, because the Exiles has got some fun things in. I built a Sergeant at Arms kit bashed one. I did a little YouTube short, which I now put out on Instagram and stuff, so people may have seen it. How I built one using the leftover bits from the Peg BSB, sorry, not the BSB, the actual Peg Lord and Duke, because you get an extra body on there and an extra head. And I used some the Cities of Sigmar infantry legs, because they're a little bit taller, cut down the cape and stuff, and that's quite a fun little miniature, because there's no Sergeant at Arms model. It's a new character, new profile. Painted the Questing Knight, the first of the new miniatures. That was a video that went out last weekend. And I've just been ordering more movement trays and adjusting things slightly because of those army lists, really. So I've been cracking on. And then we had a related question to it, actually, from bman913 in our Discord. He was asking me whether I was going to do the Border Prince's handgunners. I think the Border Prince's Brigands is the name, because I'd already done the Bombard, and I still was going to do them. I probably will, yes. They're not in my initial list. The reason I'm going to wait is because I think I need the Empire models to do it. So I have to wait for Empire to come out, so I can find some. Ideally, I want them as a kit rather than eBay Rescue, because I want to do them as a complete mix with some Men-at-Arms. So I'll probably buy a box of Men-at-Arms and a box of handgunners, or a box of Empire Militia, or maybe one of each sort of thing, and do some kind of unit like that. So yes, I intend to, but I want to do a real full kit bash for it. So I'll wait for those to come out. What else I've been working on? You can probably see it in the background. I'm working on that for Jordan, pointing on camera. So there's a land ship, an old Warhammer Forged land ship, which I've been painting for him. That's been good fun. But that's it, really, I think. So little bits. I need to crack on with those units and things more, but it's not finding the time at the moment. Too busy with work to do the real bulk. And I almost need to take a week off of doing a video in order to paint 10 normal dudes or 20 dudes. But I don't want to miss a week out without a video at the weekend. So that's my balance at the moment. Do a painting video for the channel, or paint my own stuff. But we will see. We will get there. What else? So a couple of little added points. I moaned about this. I bought it anyway. I moaned about it and said why they folded it. Why they folded it? Why is it not on the tube? That's because it's a map. It's not a poster. It's got a card cover. It's supposed to be like an ordnance survey map. It's not supposed to be stuck on a wall as a poster. So I didn't quite get it. I thought it was a map poster, but no, it's designed to be kept in this little thing. So it's actually quite nice. Was it worth £18 I spent on it? Probably not, but nice little thing. And then finally, my pre-order arrived Saturday, just gone as well. So all my cards have arrived, and they're quite nice. My remaining miniatures are the Tomb King BSB, Tomb King, the resin one, my Damsel for obviously the Question Knight as well. Oh, sorry, not the Damsel. I put that up at Warhammer, didn't I? So it's the BSB, and what else? Bone Swarms. So I have built those and primed those already, and they go together really nicely. It might be the next painting tutorial. It might be the next video after this, depending on how things go time-wise. So the Bone Swarms arrived. I think now I've got everything new that came out, apart from the BSB that are mounted.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, actually, I haven't got my physical copy rulebook yet, but I've got the EPUBs.
Yes,
now.
I picked up the digital. We picked up the digitals, so this is good. It's been nice to look through those. A Bone Giant arrived from eBay, and I also bought the Tomb King separately on eBay, and then the Bone Giant arrived. The Tomb King's on that sprue, so I've got two of the.
You mean the Bone Dragon?
Bone Dragon, yeah. When I said Bone Giant, yeah. So the Tomb King is on that sprue anyway. So I've got two of them. So what I'm probably going to use him for is one to go on a chariot. So I can stick him on a chariot, and I have him removable as well, because I can build the model identically then rather than have to purchase. So I think that's what I will do with that. But that might be one of the next, if I can find time to build it, I'd quite like to do a tutorial on that one soon, because that will be fun to paint that big beastie. And I built my, so that's the other thing, I built my pegs, both peg as a Duke stroke Baron, and I built the BSB version as well. I was hoping they will come off so I could put them on horses as well. Their leg positions kind of curled up. They're curled up, and the way they go on, and to have the reins on there, you couldn't do it. Now, they are a couple of the trickiest kits I've built in years. Really, really fiddly to get certain bits to align. So, a lot of the modern design, they don't have nubs for them to fit in. You've almost got to dry fit it until it feels right. But even then, there might still be gaps, and that's done by design. But it's quite odd. It was very hard to do the reins that are on 4 little parts. You got little straps that are yeah, you almost need tweezers. Yeah, there's bits. Makes you wonder whether the extra movement and positioning they're getting in some of the miniatures these days, whether it's worth how hard it makes the model to put together, the way they have to cut it down on that frame. They're beautiful models, but to actually build them nicely, because it's so hard to get 2 millimeters worth of rein to stick to a 2 millimeter connection point. Just I'd rather they designed it differently, especially for gaming things. I imagine even if you're doing it for a Golden Demon or something, how you handle the sub assemblies there and put it together without messing your paint job up. Don't know. But they were tricky to build, and I built a lot of stuff. and I found them tricky. I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to mention this bit, and other people have talked about this in the Warhammer, the Old World groups, but this is something we talked about in the hotel, actually, isn't it? That I'd spotted while looking at a copy of the rulebook.
Oh, yeah, I know what I'm going about. Yeah.
Yeah. So on page 14, on page 4, sorry, the full introduction of the rulebook, and I'll probably put an image up. You got your bold paragraph that talks about the Old World, and then you got this sort of 3 paragraphs that kind of introduce the factions for the game, and the first one talks about men and dwarves and elves, and obviously men covers Empire and Bretonnians, and elves covers wood elves and high elves, etc. Then it talks about hordes of armored warriors and marauders from the north, so that can be your chaos, and then worshippers of the dark gods, and then you got orcs and goblin tribes, and dark forces of chaos. So you've covered all your main factions there, all 9, one way or another, and they've not mentioned any of the legacy armies there at all, so they're only covering all the others. And then the final paragraph, it says, across the oceans of the world, the high elves of Ulthuan, which aren't in this, because all the high elves that are on that map are ones that are dotted around the borders of the Old World, fight a bitter centuries-long war against twisted kin, the Dark Elves. That line's in there. And then it goes back. Next line is about the Tomb Kings. So at that point, they have talked about all 9 factions, but there's a line in there that mentions High Elves in Ulthuan, which aren't covered in the game, and Dark Elves. And tinfoil hat time, I think at the time that introduction was written, there were 10 factions. That's my guess. It just doesn't make any difference because they're not. But my guess is that at the point that line was written, that Dark Elves were supposed to be in it, and who knows why not. You look at Cities of Sigmar; they've removed most of it, apart from those Dark Elves are all sitting there. And then we talked about your theory, wasn't it? It's about the amount of witch elves that are in the AOS side of things. I think it was your theory; it might have been someone else's, but seems to make sense. That might be the way it is. Yeah, because in order to do Dark Elves, you need witch elves, and until they've updated all of those witch elves, what do they call them? Daughters of Cain, is it?
Yeah.
So they've updated Daughters of Cain and released the witch elf models that they need to put back into fantasy. Maybe that's why Dark Elves weren't in it. But it seems to make more sense, doesn't it? 10 faction. 9 always felt weird. Why is there 5 good and 4 evil? 5 aside would have. Sorry, there's an unintentional football reference there. Not like the ones earlier. Poor Dan.
It doesn't make any
I don't
better.
even like football. I don't even like football much. But yeah, it makes no difference. But I thought it was interesting. Someone else I did notice that started a thread on the Old World Facebook page about that, but I saw that and I thought, I wonder, because not many people were talking about it, and I think it's because people just skip past that part of the rule book and go straight to the core of the rules rather than people, the stuff.
They're just it's too painful. It's too soon.
And we're never going to find out. There's no way the design team are going to admit to that at the moment. Maybe when they've retired and moved on, and Jordan Sorcery is interviewing them in 2034 or something like that on his channel. At this point, has got 1 million subscribers and he's super famous. Maybe, but
they should have Anchorman 2'd it. STS team assemble, Age Sigmar team assemble, fight out with tridents, and then whoever wins gets all the armies.
That would have been brilliant. That would have been.
That would have been a much better way of doing it.
I think that Dark Elves were supposed to be part of it, and we would have had more. And
I think they all were. They were all supposed to be in it, and everyone was supposed to be happy. And it was a sunlit uplands, and we're all.
Well, they are.
And then they thought, can't make the nerds too happy. Let's ruin it for some of them. No, I kid.
Yeah.
I am actually over it, but I just got to the point now where I just find it amusing. The whole thing's just pretty funny, and I'm just going to wait until Wales come out.
Yeah. Yep. It's just so more going over old
ground. There's
so many. Yeah, exactly. I've been looking at them for you as well, in the hope to get you some reasonably priced piles. But I was watching a box of 10 White Lions, and they got up to 65 quid with a day to go, and it's just like,
no,
insane. So if anyone does have any unpainted plastic high elves that they want to sell at a normal used rate rather than eBay rates, get in touch for Dan. He might be interested. You never know.
But you'd also be a fool. You might as well make money. Make hay while the sun shines.
You'd be surprised. There are some people. Half of my Tomb Kings collection came from a very, very, very nice man who I told him what he could sell them for, and so they're worth a lot more. And he was like, "I'm not really interested in that. Just want to sell them, price them, and use them." And I only bought half of them. I made him keep all of the metals and stuff, and told him to sell them on eBay and make loads of money. But you might have someone that's just got a couple of frames out there that they want to get rid of. Let Dan know. But, never know. Anyway, you got something for another game system to paint now anyway for that game of the summer, so you need to get them done so you can free yourself up for some Warhammer the Old World painting later in the year, and you'll just have to use my Tomb Kings if we meet up in the summer for a game. Play with some Dry Dead. Anyway, we'll go through another break and we'll come back and talk about the main topic. I say main topic, it's just a topic. It's going to be shorter than the previous 2 sections of the show, but we'll be back in a moment. Yep. And we're back yet again. So I wanted to talk about event comp really, but also the Old World. There was lots of chatter on the interwebs in the last couple of weeks, partly because of another podcast called Square Based, who pretty good in my opinion, released an outline of what comp they were going to run from their events, and that, as usual, causes arguments because someone has an opinion on the internet, other people must have a go at said opinion. And it made me chuckle because 2 or 3 days after that, the Warhammer World announced their official events and their comps pretty much identical. I just thought it was amusing. And I know that Dan will come from this from a different place than me. We are both narrative gamers to a point, and I'm getting more nervous using that term because I think sometimes it gets used. What it really means is casual. So there's a whole debate about that in any way. So we might go off on a few tangents here for a change. But also, I'm different for different game systems in terms of whether I care about composition or not. And Warhammer's a game that I believe benefited from it a little bit on either on a tournament scene or on a basis where you're playing someone you don't know and you don't know them well enough to kind of know that they're not going to bring something that's well out of whack, and you have a really out of balance game, so to speak. And Dan hates competitive gaming, so he have a very, very different view on this to me, whereas I'm a little bit more ambiguous to it. In fact, I quite like it from a point of view of watching it, but I'm also not a very competitive person, so I don't mind. I don't go to events to try and win loads and loads of games. But anyway, let's roll that back a little bit. So Warhammer Fantasy, before the world blew up, had a very, very large and vibrant tournament scene throughout the world. Lots of different events, lots of different leagues. It's part of the ETC. I think Ninth Age is still played as part of the ETC now. So the most, some of the tournament players moved on to that. And it became quite an important thing. And I say important because it rolled into club play. It has, when tournament packs, and if you don't know what a tournament pack is, if you're a historical player and you're still watching this part of the show, it's an event will come up with an extra set of rules that goes alongside the core rules to a game to advise players how they may choose their armies, and maybe even bring in some extra restrictions on top of choosing them, for the way you can play the games for that weekend. And sometimes it's needed, in my opinion, and in the opinions of the people writing it, to help balance things, because one army book will come out and it'll be much more powerful than another. And sometimes it just restricts things where people were building lists that may be unfriendly or not so nice to play against. So the square-based guys, just said we're gonna start the game with a 2,000 points limit, which is what the game's been designed around as the recommended size for a sort of 2-hour game. Grand Army, or Army of Infamy, so that's, they're not cutting off the arcane army lists there, but then they limited the units, so it's 0 to 6 for core or 0 to 3 for characters. You're limiting the number of repetitive units that people can take, rather than, because it reduces something called spam, where you'll find that a certain player may or not bring the same unit many times over, which doesn't, you end up with an army composition that maybe doesn't reflect the game and the way it's designed, and quite often be less than fun to play against. There was a net list already, even though no one's played any games, and someone realized that you could, I think, get something like 18 gyrocopters or something stupid like that in a dwarf list, because you can have units of 1 as well, so these could all be separate units, so they all become separate activations. You can do all kinds of strange shenanigans, and in competitive play maybe it doesn't matter. It's not the kind of game I like to play, but people copy it, turn up to a club, people could bring up as well. So I quite like comp. I quite like a limited comp, just a little bit of a sensible thing where a couple of, as we learn about the game, as certain people abuse things about the game. As I said earlier in the show, people break games all the time, especially competitive players, and I've not got a problem with that. That's what they enjoy about the game, finding a solution to a problem. It's not the way I play. I'm much more daydreaming and painting models, but I also appreciate that people like that side of the hobby. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong, in the same way as I wouldn't stand for them telling me that it's wrong for me to enjoy painting and spend more time reading lore and that kind of thing. We all like different things. I believe we've got to sort of accept other people's desires in the game like that, but also, if you're trying to make a game that's fun and balanced for people to play, making some changes are good. So anyway, this army, this very, very basic set of comp things that limited almost nothing. The only thing it said you couldn't bring allies. They put it out there and talked about it on a podcast. Of course, that gets shared through some groups. There was a group that Dan and I will both know that's related to heresy. That got quite a lot of negative reactions on there. It's for another podcast. We're not going to call out any names because that's not what it's about. Tell you after the show, Dan, if you want. But
I know who you're on about now.
That was shared there. I believe it was shared for a reaction, and you just get loads of hyperbolic statements, and along the lines of, who do they think they are? Why are they bringing out things like, I haven't played any games yet? And I appreciate the point of view of maybe let the game play for a little bit and see how it goes. But I also think that their guidelines are so minor, they wouldn't affect 9 lists out of 10 anyway. I looked at it and thought I would.
The official ones, aren't they? Because I think
I think so, and we'll show those. We'll show those in a moment. Yes, there's rule of 3 for the official. So I can understand the argument of leave the game alone. And that would be my first reaction, actually, is just play a few events, maybe leave it 6 months before we start doing anything like that. But when you're already seeing people coming up with wacky lists and stuff, I don't think it's a bad thing to try and maybe head a few of those off anyway. And it's their event. They're not saying, and if anyone actually listened to them, what they said, and they explain it on the podcast, it's just, this is what we're doing for our events. They didn't say everyone has to do this, by the way. So I'm making 2 points here. Is one, that people just didn't listen willfully, I believe, at times, like to rage. So they took it at face value and decided to make it. And some of the comments were just really ridiculous, very hyperbolic and childish. And there were a few people saying, well, actually, it makes sense, really. They're just trying to limit the worst excesses, etc., etc. And so, and away from the events, I touched on this already, away from events as well, I think they can be really useful. So when I used to play fantasy in 8th, I would play a lot of club games. Quite often you play against people that you met at the club but you never played a game with, or even the first or second time. Pickup game, the true pickup games. If you're arranging a game with a friend, which is what happens a lot more now, I think, especially with how internet has grown and WhatsApp groups and all these things, you get to know who you're playing against. If we were playing a game here, Dan, I wouldn't worry about that comp, because I can't imagine either of us. I could write my army list and know that they fit those comps already. And it's not because I'm trying to keep to them. It's just because I don't ever write a list where I'm thinking, right, I want to spam 6 of that unit or 6 of that, because I want a little bit of everything. And it's just the way it is. So I wouldn't even worry about it. But if I was playing someone I didn't know at the club and we didn't have a discussion beforehand, and they turned up with 18 gyrocopters or whatever it was, and guarantee they'll be unpainted as well. It's always those kind of people turn up with them in a plastic bag, that kind of, maybe they just be bases. We're always talking about that kind of person. And you waste 2 or 3 hours of your club night because you don't have a very nice game. And that's not why a lot of people hobby. So, and people say, well, don't play them. You just don't play people like that. And a lot of the comments in that Facebook group I was talking about were, well, if I came up against that event, I'd walk away. I tell you what, most people that say that don't actually just walk away. Some people do, but most people just play the game and then complain about it. What do we do as people? We complain about them behind their back afterwards, don't we? Or on the internet, like I'm doing now. So I think a basic, really low level comp of some basic restrictions are quite handy for club games as well, because you can say, okay, yeah, I'll have a game tonight. Shall we play X comp? And back in the day, the South Coast comp was a fairly popular one. Big South Coast GT, really big event. It wasn't over the top, allowed most things, and they did their best to balance it. This isn't anything. There's no restrictions on individual armies. There's no points caps. There's no extra point. The end of 8th edition, some armies had extra percentage points given to them just to try and make them competitive. This is literally just stopping you spamming core certain units and things, because it's a percentage rather than a core limit, and that's it. That, and suggesting 2,000 points, which I think is a good thing to do maybe for 6 months or so. So the other call from people at the moment is, let's pay 2,400 points, let's pay 2,500 points. That's what we do at the end of 8th, and it's nice because you can fit everything in. And I've struggled to fit all the stuff I want to, but also that economy of choice. It's what stops units becoming 40, 50. It's what stops, all the extra toys being taken. Full magic items on each thing.
3K. That's where I'll be looking to play, but that's me personally organizing a single game to play in a day.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's the kind of thing I want to play. That's the fun bit for me. I mean, you are quite right. I do. You mostly right. I do hate competitive gaming. I hate it now anyway. There'll be some people who may have followed over who remember me playing in early days of Heresy. Different person, not a very nice person. Castle Banana was rightly feared, my Imperial Fist army, because I used to go for the 3-turn tabling. I used to smash people, and it made me not a pleasant person. It made me not someone people wanted to play against. Why would you want that? Some people do. I realized that's not the kind of person I wanted to be, not the kind of hobby I wanted to be involved in, not the kind of way I wanted to be seen. Not how I'd want to get my jollies, not so I actually cared about winning. So I just stepped away from the entire thing. went back to my Night Lords and continued losing. And then from then on, I just painted what I wanted to paint to do armies. I more ascribe to what some people may remember as Stillmania.
Yeah.
Which I've fired you a picture of, so you can possibly put this on the screen so people can have a look at it.
It's I thought that. I just saw it pop up in my on my phone. I guessed that even from the smallest of little thumbnails on there, I guess what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with all of it. The idea of
no, there's a lot I don't now.
I think it's. I don't
think it's time. It's traveled with time as well as
yeah.
Kind of worked.
But I think the basic principle of, picking an army that you want to play and sticking with it, painting it to a standard you're happy with, playing it in a theme you're happy with, and if someone beats the pants off you with a net list, oh well.
Yeah.
If they've got their jollies, I get to roll out my nicely painted toys, hopefully have a decent social engagement with another individual. I don't particularly do pickup games. I don't particularly like organised events. Organised events for me are a vehicle for me to go and show off what I've painted. And I make no bones about it, which we've more than covered over. So for me, the idea of comping the lists or whatever is fine. Maximum 3. I can imagine there might be some problems with that with horde armies. I think it might make life difficult for certain types of armies. Orcs and goblins may have some issues with that because their models are cheap, and it means that you're potentially not going to get as many different things in that you want to do.
Yeah, if you wanted to go an all goblin army or something like that, it might.
Or if you wanted to do like the ranks of undeath, if you wanted to literally just do a massive Khemri army that's just full of skeleton units, which is viable. I think that's quite cool. The idea of just taking loads of leech priests and then actually having just loads of skeletons, because that's what it was at one point when Nagash rose against the kings of Khemri, the Hekara, etc. That would be recreation of an event, and I think you just have to take that on the chin. If your event doesn't allow it, don't go.
I think at 2000, I don't think
not possibly 2000. There will be outliers.
If Tomb Guard are accepted in there, I don't think you'll have an issue. That's for me. That falls under ranks of skellies as well. Slightly better. I think, and which is probably the route I'll be going down with mine, because I just like the way it looks, and they're my spare army, so to speak. So I'm not a big fan of all the constructs. I'll grab something because I think they'll be needed, but I won't grab too many of them.
The Sphinx still leaves me cold. I know people love it, but I don't understand why. Even looking at the really nicely painted one in the cabinet the other week, I was like, I understand other people like it.
Something burrowing, maybe. I don't know, but the points haven't changed that much, and we'll go back to previous shows. But when I totted up the Tomb Kings I had, it was close to 1500 anyway. So anytime you added in that bone dragon and other stuff and some Tomb Guard, I'm already going to be full, and I won't have a problem with the rule of 3. So I agree with you though, especially if the points do go higher. If we do go up to 2-4 or something, some armies, if they want to run a theme that probably isn't broken, so like an all goblin standard goblin army, or all night goblins could be, but because I think they've broken it down, I'll open up a arcane. I'll open up one of the.
I'm sure it'll be worked out. I mean,
I'm pretty sure that they've broken it down into to different units anyway. So, for example, you have with orcs and goblins. I'm flicking through the rest as we go now. So we get into the actual units. Goblin mobs. Snotling mobs. Yeah, you might have problems because they've not split goblin bows into goblins. So that could have an issue. The odd thing there.
Could be worse. One of the more recent events they did for 40k, they said maximum of 1, which I believe made all of the leagues of Votan, or Space Dwarves as they're known. They had to literally take one of each unit that was actually available in order to actually make points. So they had to have one of everything. And it's exactly one of everything. The only thing I will say for this though is it adds restrictions to an already restricted field. And when I say that, what I mean is, as we've covered previously, if you don't own the right legacy army, i.e., if you own any of the actual legacy armies, doesn't matter anyway, you're not going and playing. If you don't own the right old army that's currently being supported,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of the really popular armies from the old editions are now legacy.
Yeah.
Demons, Dark Elves, Vampire Counts, Lizard Men, Skaven.
Yeah.
To,
all the stuff that you could
especially,
make from the AOS ranges, which are also now out of stock because
but
everyone's
you
just
also
gone along and bought them out.
so unless you were lucky and you bought the right models back in the day and still have them,
Yeah.
or your army's been released, and bearing in mind that Orcs and Goblins, we don't even know if they're going to be out by the end of April. Likely, but
I
are you going to
can't
paint that
imagine
many
them
Orcs and
being out
Goblins?
in time to be painted for what's the date of the event? Don't know if it's on the pack actually. It would have popped up on the screen earlier. It's got the time.
Let's say,
isn't it end of
let's
April?
let's say they release them in the next month to 6 weeks. Orcs and Gobos.
Yeah, I don't think
That's going to be cutting it fine for most people. So
I don't think they will. We've still got a second wave of Bretts to come yet, and we've got not just second wave of the first lot, because not only have we got characters, new stuff that's not been out yet, none of the individual boxes are out, and we've got to assume that they're going to bring out Men at Arms as a box. They're going to bring out Skeleton Warriors as a box,
Knights,
and so that feels like there's quite a big second wave to come.
Well, in which case, so even best case scenario, you're probably looking, you've got a month to paint Orcs and Goblins, which isn't going to happen. That only makes 3.
Yeah.
So how many people are going to have the right 1,500 points or 2,000 points to do it?
Yeah.
It feels premature. Or,
the whole
as we discussed previously, they should have said, we give you carte blanche for a year. Everyone can play with legacy lists for a year.
I agree. I think that would have been. It would have still upset people if they said that from the annual FAQ in January 2025, the legacy armies will no longer be allowed at events. We obviously want people to try out the new rules, and they can try them at our events in the first 12 months, because that's what the way they've built it. It's quite funny, isn't it? You read. Let me open up one of them. So you read the front page of the Legacy Army list, which are beautifully produced, by the way. So the biggest one's 36 pages. They are full lists now. Whether they're after FAQs and other things, they start to become less balanced later on.
I don't think they'll touch them.
No, but I mean, it's by the other things, the non-legacy armies changing. And I think that's part of the issue around making them. But right now, you can see that so much work has gone into them. I bet you that they've been fully play tested as much as everything else. This document allows you to play in this instance, a Chaos Dwarfs army for the Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Rangers in games using from Warhammer the Old World. To use the contents, next paragraph's probably better. The rules contained within this document allow players the opportunity to try out Warhammer the Old World rules using models they may have in their collection. So you're not even allowed to buy new models for this. It's really, the wording of it is very much like, we really don't want you to play these rules. We're going to give them to you. Don't play them. Don't play them. They are not intended for use in match play events, which we know already, and will not be updated in line with any future Warhammer the Old World publications. But yeah, it's very much sold as if you want to try the rules out using your old stuff, you can do. But I agree. The two separate things.
Particular subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Just about calm down.
Exactly. That's not what the conversation was around. But yeah, I think it's interesting bringing it up. Is that by these events by April, are they going to have enough anyway? Who knows?
May the best Brett player win?
Probably.
Because they do seem stronger on paper than, especially given most of the strength of the Khemri stuff appears to be in the constructs and the big stuff and the Casket of Souls and all that kind of really gribbly cool stuff that
might struggle to get that in at 1,500
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the biggest stuff is the contract. Well, nothing's available now. It's all sold out. But before it all sold out, all the constructs were there.
You can buy an army box for Bretonia and you're full of knights. You can convert Grail Knights and stuff out of that.
I'm with you. Yeah.
It's
I don't know power level wise. It would be too early to say, and I've not read the rules enough
No,
to
but I
know
think
that.
in
But
terms of what's available in order to create the best army from the models that are currently commercially available, Britannia has a better chance of it.
in terms of converting those knights, maybe, but other than that, it's fairly equal. I'd
Yeah,
say.
but again, you can't get hold of Ushabti.
Yeah,
At the moment,
we can't get any of it. I think the
well,
only
that's what
thing
I
that's
mean.
in stock is Peg Knights. But Ushabti did come out though, didn't they? They were part of the metal ranges. What I mean is they have been out as part of this release.
Yeah.
The only things that haven't been is the casket, I think. And then we're obviously going to get a second wave at some point, but whether that's so yeah, I agree. I think it's too early. I'm not quite sure why they've gone for it in
September
April.
would have been a better shout. I know it's busy back end of the year, but
I also think they'll get enough people, and it may well be.
I wish them every success.
Maybe some
but
of
it does seem silly.
People involved in the play testing and the wider group. There were quite a few people playing that day, weren't there?
Yeah,
there were quite a few
did you
people.
Notice a few of them had armies they shouldn't have been using?
No, I didn't look.
Like the really beautifully painted vampire counts army that I was chatting to the owner of.
Oh no, I didn't. So okay, so they weren't banned from that because it wasn't an official event. It was just a rock up and play on the tables, wasn't it? So,
and not to mention, imagine if that really nicely painted high elf army that's entirely built out of Luminef wins and ends up on Warcom. That's going to go down really well.
Yeah, Liam's. Yeah. Who knows? I think it seems early. I don't know what the thinking was around that, but maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it'll turn to be fine. And there are other events obviously around the time as well.
There's quite a few. To indie. I think the community will own it for the first year or so.
I think so too. I think so. Maybe that's why there isn't a. That's why it's not being called a GT. Maybe that's why it's a smaller event and it's 1,500 points. The other one's 1,250. It even mentions board size of the 44 by 60, which is the new AOS and 40k largest size.
I suppose that fits on a 50. If that's actually true, because one of them, the 2000, originally the 1,500 one had 2,000 and 1,500 in the same blurb because I spotted it and sent it to someone I know and said that needs fixing. So I don't know how much of the stuff that's actually on those maybe was hastily copy pasted in, and we should perhaps check it.
And also, what mats? I'm guessing they'd be using AOS mats then, because if you haven't been to Warhammer World, the new slightly smaller board size that they use for 40k, they basically have pre-printed mats that have the borders on. So you have a few inches around the edge, and then you have to one side you've got some off-space playing area. You put your cards and books there, which is fine, but doesn't really work with fantasy. Like yeah, it's nice. It wouldn't work with fantasy unless you restrict the games to 1,500 or below. I think you need that bigger space. Now they obviously have bigger mats unless they borrowed them all, because there were lots of 6x4 mats when we were there for the open day. So they have those mats. So it'd be interesting. So I hope they're not playing them with 40k mats. You don't want to turn up for a world event and see that. I'm guessing they'll be using AOS.
It's an interesting problem for them because GW doesn't produce mats, and obviously Realm Battle's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
So
well, they're obviously getting the ones they're playing in. The ones in Warhammer World are neoprene, so they're obviously made for them. So they'll if they want to keep playing Warhammer, the old world on the smaller size, if they try and limit it to that for Warhammer World events, they'll obviously get some made somewhere, I imagine. But what I imagine is they'll just buy enough in, and they'll be the larger ones. I'm trying to think back when I last. They had some proper neoprene mats when I did Throne of Skulls for Middle Earth there. So maybe
there was some there when we were there the other day. They just tucked under stuff.
Yeah, so I reckon they've probably got enough, and that's what the games will be played on. But you're probably right; it might well be that they've just almost copy and paste over, and then we'll see how it goes. But anyway, it's a bit of a strange topic, really. But I just thought it was interesting to sort of what are people are interested in event comp. What do people think? Is it too early to have any? I don't think it is too early to have. I don't think it's a problem trying it. Yeah. What you need is lots of variety. But I also am not against a level of comp because it is handy. And it's handy shame, actually, balancing games and stopping the biggest extremes and things. And in most cases, I hope the game doesn't need much. Hopefully it is quite nicely balanced, but it's such a huge game. And so much of it is so similar to before, in terms of points, costs, and the units available. Magic's changed a lot, yes. And some of the and some of the movement shenanigans and what happens when you win and lose a combat, they're the biggest
That's changed a
changes.
lot.
But I can't see with the core of the
Hero Hammer's
rules for
less
the
viable.
armies. Maybe. We don't know yet. I think movement's going to be huge, but I don't see enough of those things built into it that would suggest that they can't. The game's still huge, and it can still be broken in other ways, and people will find a way to break it, because that's what you do. If you are a competitive gamer and you want to go and win, your goal is to win, you're going to find the best way to win, and that's why you sometimes need a little bit of comp to stop the most skewy kind of things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and it doesn't affect the 3K game that we'd play
yes,
at Warhammer World all afternoon while drinking a beer or here, whatever it was. That wouldn't. I'm not saying that I love comp. We need it for everything. What I'm saying is, I think actually for events, and you're trying to keep, and 2K is probably a good idea to start with as well. That's the only thing I'd say right now is just let's play 2K at events for a while. As in, I don't play 2K at all events. If you want to play a 1500 point event, great. But let's not go up to 2.4 yet. Let's just decide whether what's broken at 2K
2.4
and then
such a strange number.
I don't. Yeah,
there was everyone play 650.
2250 was in some. 2.4 was a lot, and then there was quite a lot of 2.5 as well. But 2.4 seems to be the most common. It's fine. Yeah. I would love to play at 2.4 if we know that by doing that it doesn't make things. That doesn't break the game in itself by allowing the strong. Because what always happens is the strongest armies get to take even more of it, and the weakest armies can't normally solve the game. Now, if by moving it to 2.4, it has no negative effect, or it actually helps balance it more, let's do it, because I can get an extra unit in. I can take another thing, because I can't squeeze it all in at 2,000. But I'd say that would be my call right now, is just play at 2,000 for a little while, for a year or so, at as many of the full-size games to speak for, because that's where the game was designed, and then work out, let the people that are really good at the game come up with solutions that are needed. But in terms of a basic comp, I'd almost expect it going to event. These things help balance it a little bit, make the playing experience nicer for both parties. So you can go there and you come up against an opponent that has an army that looks something like you'd expect an army, or Warhammer Fantasy army, made up of a mixture of units and of different kinds, rather than, as we say, X amount of gyrocopters or all skirmishing units. That all these little, it's always the janky shenanigans stuff that just makes you feel like, well, this isn't the game I turned up to play. This is not a rank and flank, and people will do that, and why not if they're allowed to? But anyway, interested people from the old Warhammer scene, what you think of that? People that have never come across comp before, probably really confused at what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just gutted Scott from Triple Crown hadn't fully finalised the event pack for the Specialist Games Weekender read in time for this. I hoped he had, so we could have had a look at that as well, to see what someone who's previously run. Yeah, a little bit.
Well, we've not really talked about the packs that much, and I'm not. It was more I wanted a little bit of an overview discussion.
But it's another who's doing what at what points and all that kind of stuff, and whether he's putting comp in as well.
Yeah,
I hope to have that, but hasn't materialized.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see whether he is. But I think the main takeaway for me is let's try lots of things, and let's go light to start with, but let's also not overreact when there's very, very basic things. People aren't trying to break the game, or as they're accused of, becoming the leaders of the community by making a comp for their own game. It's all up for grabs at the moment.
That's happened with a few things.
It will always happen. Someone
will run question.
There will be a ranking system.
Experienced it, particularly within the heresy community. There is a group of individuals from a certain geographical location who appear to, at least within some circles of the community, become the official leaders of heresy.
Well, it's some of those people maybe that were complaining, but again, you can have multiple of these things, and no one group is more important than the other. When it becomes to an official tournament scene, there will be something that rises to the top. There'll always be someone that ends up having to run and own an independent rankings or something. Saying that, somewhat related, I think, did I read someone that GW have just taken over ITC? I think they're actually taking it over. So maybe GW are trying to, and that's the other thing, is GW could do their own centralized thing. I was just ending the conversation there, but what it reminds me of, Privateer Press ran their own official tournament packs, and there were different styles. I'm trying to remember them all. Steamroller was kind of your middle ground one. God, this is testing me. Sorry, Rich will be shouting at the thing if he's watched this far in. People who still play War Machine, but you'd have different levels, and you'd have a doubles pack as well. Each year they release official Steamroller pack, and there would be like the really hardcore Masters level, which there'd only be 3 or 4 different scenarios that you could possibly play. And it was very restricted, full time clocks and stuff. And then there was the more kind of middle of the road style, which still be time clocks, but be more relaxed timing. But it works for that game. It's not something, it's a way of managing round time, isn't it? And making sure each player gets the fair amount of time rather than someone taking forever to move all their models and then the other person doesn't get to win because the other way, again, we're talking about making it fair in a competitive environment. It's not the way I game at home. So people I don't want people get confused. Well, he's clearly a competitive game. I'm not, but I also see the logic in trying to do things that balance it between 2 players that don't know each other. Have got to get a result within a certain time period. But anyway, they did their own official ones, and you didn't have to be an official Privateer Press event. But if you did, they would help you with surprise support, even just sending you certificates through. And GW could do a similar kind of thing, and I think they've started to do that with 40k and AOS race. I don't follow those games enough, but I know they've been linked with the guys that came up with those 40k rankings and ITC and things. So maybe that's the way you do it, is that they own it. Otherwise, someone from the community will come along, and it'll be the loudest voice after a year.
Offensive enough. So it's all of that.
It may well be the square base guys. Who knows? But and that will upset people. But whoever does it, there will be people that don't like the people who are in charge. But way back in the day, I think Bad Dice were the sponsors of the rankings for a while, and they updated it. And Ben Curry, someone has to be the person that puts their hand up and do this. There's nothing to do with me. I won't be involved in it. I don't know if I'll do many events. No,
to me, because unfortunately, I think there is that thing that's happened with 40k where almost it's leading the way that the game develops and how they write the rules, and almost that influences in some respects the models they sell and the codex and the supplements they do. It's becoming led by the competitive. It's becoming the thin end of the wedge that's influencing the entire wedge, and I really hate that. I don't want to see that in any game I play. That's the thing.
I think I just can't see that working with SDS and the way they release. I think there's a natural butt up against that. And this game will run a lot more like AOS,
if I'm honest, as well.
Well, this will run a lot more like the way Heresy does. But what it will mean is that the community, if they want to be a proper competitive scene, because Heresy doesn't have that, because it's a different kind of game. This will have a competitive scene, because it will bring back the players that like to play it that way. And let's be honest, it's a rule set that's probably slightly better to design for that. So just the type of game it is, and that was always at its core. So it will have a competitive scene. It could be a fairly casual based competitive scene, and most people that go to a big event are happy to be in the bottom tables and just go for some fun. There'll only be that top percentage that want to go and really try and win. But because of that, there will be a rankings, I'm sure. Within a year, there'll be a rankings. There will be talk about it at the ETC. So someone will have to come along and do it. And my hope for it is any comp packs that come out that most of them are just saved for those events, and we don't need them. Hopefully the game works well enough that we don't need them away from events. Whereas if there's a really mild one, a bit like the one that we've just seen, that can help you in your club games against that person you don't know who might turn up with a really hard bad list, then I don't think that's a negative thing. But also variety. I want to see across different events. Oh, I don't fancy that event. That's too lower points level. I like to play big games, so I'm going to go to this one. No one has to own the rules and choose everything. We don't need one compact to rule them all, so to speak. But anyway, be interesting to see if anyone's still watching this part of the show, and if you are, be interested in your thoughts on it. If you've played any kind of games competitively, what kind of comps and things were there for those? I think we've done it to death. We killed a few people off.
That dead horse is well flogged.
Right then, have you got anything you want to add before we go, Dan?
Usual, thank you for watching. Thank you for everyone who was so nice to us, both on the Friday while we're playing games and those people we spoke to on Saturday. Really nice to meet some new people as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, echo that completely. It was really nice. Anyone who came and said hello and said nice things, and people I bumped into. I haven't listed names on here either, but the people I spoke to that I haven't seen for a year or two. It's nice catching up with you all again. And I've been chatting to a couple of you since then, asking about things. Thank you for the person that should remain nameless that bought us a beer in the curry house. Thank you. And hi to you. And yeah, great stuff. Thank you if you've watched the end of the show. Sorry, not sorry. It's all old world stuff at the moment. And go and check out the Discord, go and join and get involved in the conversation and stuff there. And we'll catch you all soon.